Good evening and welcome to the January 23rd, 2024 Parks and Recreation meeting. Could we please get a roll call?
Chair Greenfield,
Here.
Vice Chair Brown,
Here.
Commissioner Cribbs, Commissioner Freeman, here, Commissioner Kleinhaus,
Here.
Commissioner Oche,
Present, please.
Commissioner Way,
Here.
and Councilmember Binker.
Here.
Chair, that's 8 present.
Thank you. And welcome to Councilmember Venker, our new City Council liaison for the coming year. We're very, very pleased to have you with us. And it's great to see you in person here.
I'm happy to be here. Particularly pleased for this assignment as both parks and recreation are important to me for reasons I can explain later if you're interested, but happy to be here.
Thank you. Now's the opportunity for public comment. If anyone would like to speak to an item that's not on this evening's agenda, either in person or via Zoom, please fill out a speaker card or raise your hand. And looks like there's a hand raised. Jawad.
Chair, I'm seeing 1 hand raised online.
So Lynn, you have 3 minutes to speak.
I have a question on the golf course regarding the incident or whatever it was that occurred, I guess, last June that was written up by Sue Draymond. Was anything ever done to try to encourage golfers to stay on the trails? I was walking there on the levee and I noticed particularly people who carry their own clubs or walk tend to take the shortcuts because it's a long way.
Excuse me, Lynn. The golf annual report is on the agenda this evening.
The golf report I read, and it didn't address any of those issues. That's why I asked. At least when I went online and I downloaded it, I saw only monetary interest with no follow-up to that question.
So I understand that. I think you could.
Did you want me to bring it up at that point?
I think that would be appropriate.
All right,
If you're able to just stick around.
we'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I'm seeing no more hands raised online or in person.
Great, thank you. Next, we'll move on to agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Does anyone have anything to suggest for this evening? Okay, then we'll move on to the approval of minutes from our December 19th meeting at the end of last year. Does anyone have any comments or suggestions regarding the minutes from our last meeting? Joy.
Thank you, Chair. Just some rewarding required in line 27 and line 28, please. It says, she questioned how the decision to add co-ed pickleball and frisbee was made. If was feedback from the community. I think there's something missing there.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
think staff can clean that up. Anything else from anyone? That if there are no other changes recommended or suggested, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Freeman, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Greenfield,
To approve, yes.
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Cribbs, Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kleinhaus,
Yes. Oh, I think I wasn't there. I'll abstain.
Commissioner Oche,
Yes, please.
And Commissioner Way?
Abstain.
Chair, that's 5 yes with 2 abstained.
Thank you. And next up is the department report.
Good evening, Chair Greenfield and members of the commission. My name is Lam Do. I'm Superintendent Open Space Parks and Golf for Community Services, filling in this evening for for Department Head Kristen O'Kane. We have a very brief, truncated department report today. Previously, we had reported that the department was recruiting for an assistant director of arts and sciences. Our new assistant director, Amanda Dummel, started last week, and so we're excited to have her on board. Another recruitment that we had previously announced that would start this month and that is for the second assistant director position. And that is to oversee the program areas of recreation, open space, parks and golf. So that recruitment did begin this month, and it is through a recruiter, Terry Black. We have field closure still in place. This is part of the annual renovation process to improve the quality of the turf. So right now, the Cubberley fields remain closed, and they'll close through February. The date initially was February 23rd. It'll be dependent upon weather, of course. So that's a rough date. We also have the
Excuse me, that's just the grass fields?
Yes, this is sports fields. Thank you for the clarification. It's grass sports fields.
Not the synthetic turf.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
In addition to that, the Bayouts athletic fields as well, they're closed, and these renovations will take a lot through early March, and the tentative date is roughly March 8th as well. We had previously also reported that there were going to be improvements to the Palo Alto Little League field, and working with the Palo Alto Little League as well. That process did start. However, due to the weather, we've had to push it back a little bit. However, we'll continue that collaboration with them as well. So that is ongoing as well. And then the last item to report to you today is previously the commission had worked with staff, and the commission recommended the Tower Well site to be dedicated as parkland. Last night on the consent calendar for council, it was pulled based on the request of 3 council members. To be brought back. One of the council members expressed that it was not because of being against it, but more wanting to hold a discussion on that. So that will have to come back to the council as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lum. Just a quick question. What was it that you said was closed until early March after Cubberley? Didn't catch that. I'm sorry.
The athletic fields at Baylands. It would be the 2 fields there, the 2 diamonds.
Thanks.
Sorry, why are they closed?
Annually, we renovate the turf and also the infield of the fields. It is to prolong the play. The field cannot take a full year's worth of play and be ready for the spring. So we reseed or resod where we need to, and then we let the new growth grow in.
Yeah.
Other questions from commissioners?
Reflecting back to what on the field closure, is that something that happens on an annual basis? And if so, has that been something that has been communicated to the groups that rely on using that field?
Yes, it is an annual process. Just being natural turf, unlike synthetic turf, which is year-round play, natural grass turf cannot handle that amount of play, and so it has to be renovated annually. So each year we work with the organizations as we do field brokering as well, and so we don't broker during the closure times. It's planned, and the organizations are notified.
And lastly, is there signage to that effect as far as the closure time, duration and when they can expect to replay?
Yes, there is signage and contact information at the site.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, similar question in terms of the closure duration. Is it each year the similar time, like 2 to 3 weeks? Or is this time the closure has anything to do with the gym as well? Because that's one the site is considered for the wellness center.
Unrelated to the gym and wellness center, this is an annual process.
Okay, thank you.
Others?
This is a more something to be followed up on, but there was a stop work order on Bulware Park, or there was a signage in early December. Just wondering if you don't have an answer right now, but if we could follow up to see what, if any, delays that would cause the project. It seemed like a permit issue, but just for next time, if we could get an update on that.
I didn't understand.
I can confirm from staff colleagues that yes, it is related to permits.
So I was not so sure about the Tower Well Park. What was the held up? I didn't comprehend.
Yes,
Perhaps you could explain the consent calendar.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Perhaps you could explain the consent calendar.
Yes. There are two ways to get approval from council. Items that are discussion items are voted on individually per topic, per item. And then there are items that are voted on as a whole, a group set. And it's what's put on what's called a consent calendar. And so it depending on each week, it could be various items, 2 or 3, or even up to 10, 15 items that are all voted as a whole, one vote for the entire list of items. This in particular Tower Well was placed on the consent calendar to be approved along with all the other items that were associated with the consent calendar. However, council members do have the option, should they want to discuss an item, to request that it be pulled from the consent calendar, in which this case it was.
Thank you.
Councilmember Banker?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm trained to turn my light on, so that's what I was trying to do. Yeah, that's exactly the issue I wanted to address. Last night was our pulling of that item, which, as you accurately reported, was not meant in any way to be a negative or any disagreement with this commission. In fact, in part, we want a further discussion, but also we want it on an action item. We want this to be public, that we are dedicating parkland. We want to celebrate it. We are excited by it. So I think that's likely what most of my colleagues will say when it comes back. So there is a lot of respect and deference for this commission, but it was pulled for reasons that are not necessarily typical. And I wanted to share that with the commission.
Thank you. That's helpful, because usually when something is pulled, it's just the opposite.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to make that clear.
At least from the opinion of some. Shani, do you have a comment? Joy.
Thank you, Chair. Quick clarification about the synthetic turf fields you mentioned. Since it's an annual thing, is it more sustainable to use better materials that won't require often maintenance? Just curious to know if it's something we are considering.
This is more of a rejuvenation process of natural grass. We do our best in regards to using amendments, soil amendments, fertilizers, and seed type, what type of grass that's more durable per the site. Some of our fields are sand-based, some of our fields are soil-based. So it also dictates the different type of grass seed that we use. This is more of a matter of the high use that our community needs, and trying to balance the high use and maintaining growing grass. Due to high levels of play, the grass throughout the year would be ideal to have it rest, but we're not able to give it rest. And not being able to give it rest throughout the year, it results in an annual process where we have to renovate the fields, leading to a closure. This process as opposed to letting the fields rest throughout the year, I think has worked better for league play. That it's one or the other, I think, but this has seemed to be a better process.
Thank you.
Thank you, I would certainly agree from many years of observation that this is a process that is to our community's benefit. And a similar line, by a similar line of reasoning, that's why no lights are ever considered for grass playing fields, because keeping the hours of use, increasing the hours of use for grass fields would increase the hours of use for grass fields, which would increase the wear and exacerbate the problem that we're trying to not have as a problem here. I have a question of staff regarding Arrastadero Preserve, the status of the construction materials that have been in a staging area there for a really long time. I think the original work cycle has long passed, and I'm very interested in understanding what is there, why it's still there, and when it's going to be gone.
I will need, staff will need to get back to you on this. I don't have an answer on that at this time. I believe you're referring to a utilities project at which the location happens to be within the preserve. Staff will get back to you on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the staging area is being continued to be used for other projects, some things at Foothills Nature Preserve as well, perhaps. So it'd be good to get some clarification on this.
Okay, I may be mistaken then as well. I did hear some discussion. I think what you're hitting to is past use and future planned use. Is that correct?
I'm not sure, but looking forward to getting a clarification from staff on this.
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Then we'll move on to our first business item, which is coincides with the beginning of our year, the election of our chair and vice chair for the coming year. So the protocol for the election of a new chair and vice chair is that the outgoing chair, that's me, explains the general duties and responsibilities of the chair, including the monthly time commitment necessary to facilitate meetings. Previously, we'd used the chairperson's role as described in Rosenberg's rules of order. Now that we have the role and responsibilities of the chair called out in the BCC or Board Commission and Committee Handbook, I will read the role of the chair from that. So at the beginning of each year, each BCC will select a member to serve as chair. The chair exists to structure productive meetings, encourage the input of ideas, promote inclusiveness, and facilitate the overall decision-making process. They do not have greater power than any other member. The following is a list of duties and responsibilities of the chair. Ensure that the BCC completes the annual work plan and reports the results annually to the City Council. The work plan shall include metrics of community involvement and participation in meetings and activities. 2, set a positive tone and manage public input to promote civility and decorum. 3, preside at all meetings, submit all motions to vote, and in general, do all things ordinarily required of a chair, such as call or cancel a meeting, coordinate the setting of the agenda with the staff liaison, receive public testimony, ensure compliance with the Brown Act, etc., move forward committee priorities, and refrain from promoting or setting a personal agenda. Ensures that items not listed on the agenda are prohibited from being discussed or acted upon pursuant to the Brown Act unless specific circumstances apply. 4, act as a spokesperson for the BCC, including as the media's point of contact for information regarding BCC activities. Seek advice and involvement of the city's public communications manager as needed through the staff liaison. 5, ensure that all members are heard in a fair and safe manner. The chair is responsible for ensuring the effectiveness of the group process. identifies points of agreements among the BCC members in order to build a consensus. 6, ensures that consideration of items on the agenda move along without delay and make sure that public testimony is received, but not allowed to disrupt the meeting. This includes setting an acceptable time limit if necessary. And finally, 7, clarifies all ideas as they are discussed and repeats motions made in a way so all members understand the motion they will be asked to vote on and ensures the actions are properly moved, seconded, and voted upon. Always indicate clearly how the vote is taken, such as a call for the negative vote saying those opposed say no. In the absence of the chair, the vice chair shall act as presiding officer and shall have the same responsibilities. I know it's a little bit, I see it now it's up in front of us. Maybe I didn't need to read through the whole thing, but it is helpful to review these once a year, just to refresh them in our minds. Now the procedure. This is what we will do. The chair opens the floor to nominations for the position of chair. And you can read it as well. The commissioners nominate one commissioner at a time. The person nominated must be present. You can enter your own name. You can nominate yourself if you like. The person offering the nomination can explain why they're making the nomination. Then the chair asks the nominated person if they will accept the nomination. This process continues with multiple additional candidates nominated as long as further nominations are desired. When there are no further nominations, the chair asks for or a commissioner offers a motion to close the nominations. The motion is seconded and the commission votes verbally to close the nominations. Voting will be according to roll call vote by the staff, by staff. And the staff will count the votes and announce only the winner and number of votes. The elected chair then assumes responsibility for the meeting. And the similar process for the vice chair. Any questions on this? If there are no questions, then I will open the floor to nominations for the position of chair. Would anyone like to make a nomination? Ellis.
I would like to nominate Mandy as who's now vice chair to become the chair for the coming year.
And would you like to say any more?
Yeah, I think Mandy's actually done an excellent job in the last year, well, even before that, but especially as vice chair, stepping in when there was a need to, and also providing sort of a right hand that is needed in support of the chair and also the various functions of the commission itself. So she's done an excellent job for that, and I think one of the rewards for that should be as chair of the commission.
Excuse me, Vice Chair Brown, do you accept the nomination?
Thank you. I'm honored and flattered, and I do accept the nomination.
Great. Are there any further nominations for chair?
Could we nominate the same person or no? No.
So once someone has been nominated, that's sufficient. Okay, so it looks like there are no further nominations from the floor. And so I will ask for a motion to close nominations.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Shani, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Anne. And can we, and all in favor of closing the motion, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you. Passes unanimously. And now could we please have a roll call vote?
We don't talk about it.
Why?
Yeah. We should talk about this. Let's have some Would anyone like to have further discussion on this?
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm glad this nomination has been done and I'm happy to support it. I think you're very organized, methodical and thoughtful and have done an amazing job as a vice chair and will do a good job as chair. I'm looking forward to working with you on some of the more ecological aspects that we've been just starting to delve into, including lighting in parks, which we probably should look at when the city looks at light pollution priority, which was one of the mayor's priorities for this year, more biodiversity aspects and so on. So I hope that we can work on that together. I know the others here would be happy to see that happen. And yeah, I guess it's congratulations too, because there's no.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm looking at this procedure. I'm following a little bit too much to the letter of the law. There's no place for comments, but we definitely have a place for comments. I'll go next with a comment. I'm very excited at the opportunity for Mandy to take over as chair. In the past year as vice chair, she's done a great job at supporting me and supporting conversations with staff in planning agendas and other issues that come up. I think she brings a great perspective to the commission and to the process with her background in city government and also the perspective of having grown up in Palo Alto and being from a different demographic than most of us as well. All things that are very positive and those are more objective, but the more subjective things are just the way she handles herself and the thoughtfulness and the perspective of processing overall. I'm really looking forward to seeing how you carry the torch forward. Other comments?
Yeah, could I just say that I'm delighted that you have accepted the role of chair, and I'm looking forward to working with you. I know it'll be a great year. So thank you very much for being willing to do this. And could I also just say to the chair, the current chair, thank you very much for your service for so many years, and it has been a pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Before we move forward, just want to check in to see if there's any public comment requests on this. I'm not seeing any, but if anyone would like to speak to this, please raise your hand or turn in a speaker card.
Yeah, I want to add a comment. Yeah,
I'm seeing no hands raised online or in person.
Okay, then we'll proceed. Commissioner Way.
Yeah, I echo what Commissioner Clerk just said. I was really, firstly, really enjoyed, Chair, your sort of leadership through the 10 months I'm here, and I really benefit from your guidance. And at the same time, I congratulate Commissioner Brown to be the chair. I think you're ideal and candidate because you brought a lot of clarity of thinking and structured process. And also you have a data-driven kind of solution in which you in your master plan presentation and the dog park initiative, which you also brought a lot of thoughtfulness for care for the city staff. So I'm really impressed by that. And also the meeting you chaired, I also witnessed your outstanding leadership capacity. So I'm looking forward to working with you.
Anyone else? Joy.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to say a big thank you to you first for all the leadership you've demonstrated through your tenure, and also to say big congratulations. I haven't had the opportunity to work closely with you yet, but I believe that the new upcoming year will be a great opportunity to work with you, collaborate with you, learn from you, and also exchange ideas. So looking forward to an awesome year ahead. Thank you.
Now I think we're ready to go to a roll call vote.
Chair Greenfield,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Krebs,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kleinhaus,
Yes.
Commissioner Oche,
Yes, please.
and Commissioner Way.
Yes.
Chair, that's a 7-0 vote for Amanda Brown as election of chair.
Thank you. And let's pause for a moment, or go ahead, Mandy.
I just, again, want to reiterate my thank you to staff as well as the full commission for just their support in getting to this point. I wouldn't do this if it wasn't for you, Jeff, because you taught me everything, and you're just a wealth of knowledge, and your value to the commission, the city, government, and the city itself, the residents, is invaluable. And I hope everybody that goes to a playing field or bike trail or anything knows that you had a lot to do with it and your fingerprints are all over it. So I am terrified to try and fill your shoes, but also very excited. And thank the full commission for your support.
Well, thank you, Chair Brown, for your kind words. And thank you to everyone else as well for your kind words. It's been a pleasure serving as chair and vice chair for a number of years, and a lot of good experiences as a part of a group that's done a lot of great things. And I'm not going anywhere just yet. I'm still around and happy to help and support you and the commission and staff and our city council liaison in any way I can. And really look forward to, as I've said, seeing the direction you take things. And I have high confidence in you, and I think you'll get you will as well. So let's pause just a moment to switch seats.
Chair, may I make a comment?
So,
May I make-
yes. Excuse me.
Well, first of all, congratulations, Chair Brown. I guess I should say Commissioner, may I make a comment? But Chair Brown, congratulations. I look forward to working with you. And I just wanted to say something about now Commissioner Greenfield, that he has represented this body well. I've called on him from time to time with respect to council matters that relate to this commission, and he's always been extremely responsive and helpful in terms of explaining the work of this commission. He's represented it well at council. He's come several times to explain the decisions of this body and has really been a credit to this body. So I just want to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to the vice chair election, and moving in the same protocol. I'm just going to read out the vice chairperson's role, which is to assist the chairperson in responsibilities serving the commission, including serving as the acting chair when the chair is not available, including at regular Parks and Recreation Commission meetings, other community events, assisting with other tasks as requested by the chair, including working with staff and the chair on planning meeting agendas and other matters, and quietly helping guide the chair during meetings when necessary. And following the same protocol, I'm going to open the floor to nominations for the position of vice chair. Commissioner Krebs?
Yes, excuse me. I'd like to nominate Commissioner Freeman to be the vice chair. I think he will do a wonderful job. He's very prepared and very articulate, and I think that it will be a perfect match with our new chair and vice chair. So I'm wholeheartedly in favor of that.
Great. Commissioner Freeman, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do accept the nomination, and thank you, Commissioner Krebs, for your kind words. And I look forward to, depending on how the vote goes, to serving this commission in any capacity. I've really enjoyed the last 2 years. I've been 3, I can't remember, but it's been fun. It's a really great commission to serve on. So I really appreciate the effort moving forward.
Great. Are there any other nominations? Okay, with no further nominations, let's ask for a motion to close the nominations. Commissioner Greenfield,
I'll move that we close nominations.
okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Crims, can we vote all in favor to close the nominations? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Moving on, is there any, I guess at this point, we'll take additional comments from other commissioners on the nomination of Commissioner Greenfield, or sorry, Freeman, first mistake, that was fast, huh?
I'm backing away.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to say a big thank you to you for giving us the opportunity to add our comments. It seems like you are reading most of our minds, Commissioner Krebs, and it makes the job easy. So congrats to you, Commissioner Freeman. I look forward to working with you again. And I have benefited from the type of questions you ask. I wish I could learn more on how to ask very great questions. Because that's innovation. When you ask questions that are relevant, that are specific, you get the right answers on how and why things are done the way they are, and you can problem solve. So looking forward to work more with you and learn from you as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Greenfield.
I enthusiastically support the nomination of Nellis for vice chair. I really enjoyed working with him in his tenure on the commission. Appreciate his perspective and his approach to things, and just common sense, asking questions that need to be asked, understanding the community, understanding various details of within Parks and Recreation and our purview. And I agree that I think they'll make a great team with Chair Brown, and look forward to seeing the new leadership of the commission.
Commissioner Way.
Yeah, I'm echoing the same support, and I feel Commissioner Freeman is remarkably balanced in his view and perspective. Actually, quite learning your way of looking into different things, and also, I guess, being Palato for so long, over 4 decades, and his profound insight from both of you. And Chair Brown, you have brought also a native, living, growing up here. So I think you will make great partnership leaders forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Kleinhaus.
I agree with everything that's been said. I enjoyed working with you on several of the ad hocs. I think you do bring a very calm, balanced, and compassionate view, and really care about the community and all aspects of it. So thank you, and looking forward.
Just pause. Are there any public comment on this item? Don't believe so.
I'm seeing no hands raised in person or online, Chair.
Okay, any other comments from the commission?
Yes, may I just add that Commissioner Freeman is always so inclusive and always definite about listening to the community, and I really appreciate that.
And I'll just add that you do ask the best questions, and I think that's a common theme here. And sometimes they seem so simple, but they come back with the most insight. And I think that's a real asset to the commission. Let's take a roll call vote on Commissioner Freeman.
Chair Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Krebs,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Kleinhaus,
Yes.
Commissioner Oche,
Yes, please.
Commissioner Way.
Yes.
Chair, that's a 7-0 vote for Commissioner Nellis Freeman as election of vice chair.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, this is the bicycle and pedestrian transportation plan update, and I'll hand it over to staff to introduce the item. This is a discussion item, and if you do want to comment on this item, please raise your hand on Zoom or hand in a yellow speaker card.
Thank you, Chair. This evening, we have Ozzy Arce with the Office of Transportation. He is the Manager of Transportation Planning. He's joined by Amanda Lahey, consultant with Kittleson, and with apologies if I mispronounced. Lahey, thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Ozzy Arce. Thank you for that brief introduction. I'm a senior transportation planner, aspiring maybe future transportation planning manager, but currently senior transportation planner, Office of Transportation. I have with me virtually Sylvia Starlack, the transportation planning manager for the Office of Transportation, as well as Amanda Lahey from Kittleson and Associates, the consultants helping us on this effort. I will be brief tonight, and Amanda will guide most of the presentation, but I just wanted to kick off by saying we're excited to kick off this effort that we did at the end of last year. It's the update to the city's bicycle and pedestrian transportation plan. Last time the city updated was in 2012. So we're looking forward to updating it in this context of today's world. It is a bicycle and pedestrian transportation plan, but similar to the 2012 plan, we are looking at other fleet types, especially in today's context, such as e-bikes that grew during the pandemic, such as shared micromobility, things like that. Just looking at updating the programs, facilities, and policies in that document. The intent, like I mentioned, looking at those routes that folks travel locally, as well as leaning on those programs and looking to enhance them that are already successful in the city's toolkit, such as the Safe Routes to School program. Just at a high level, there's no action for the commission tonight. We're just introducing the effort, getting your initial feedback, and at later times during the project effort, the commissioners will get to dive in a bit deeper into the material, help us develop that network, and ultimately shape the draft and final plan. Kick it over to Amanda to continue the presentation, but thank you all for listening and looking forward to the discussion.
All right, thanks, Ozzy, and hi, everyone. During this meeting, we'll provide an introduction and an overview of this plan. We'll describe the community engagement activities and technical analysis that is underway. And we'll also provide a look ahead at what's next for this plan update and how you can stay involved. Next slide. Next slide. So for this group, we will be coming to you 3 times over the course of the project. We're here today. We should be here actually next in April. We were just looking at the schedule earlier today. So we'll have the results of the existing conditions analysis to you in April. And then in fall of 2024, we'll be coming back with project prioritization and recommendations. And we are asking that you provide review and comment on materials, ask great questions during this meeting time. I'm looking forward to that today. And also promote and get involved in some of the engagement activities. Next slide. The objectives of this bicycle and pedestrian transportation plan update are to seek robust community feedback, to reevaluate implementation progress from prior plans and adjust recommendations for new policies, facilities, and programs. We want to determine the appropriate criteria and metrics to prioritize these project recommendations and network routes. And we'll take a look at safety data to propose the most impactful recommendations. And as Ozzy was mentioning, we'll be exploring the role of emerging transportation technologies such as e-bikes and micromobility to really help expand biking and walking for all users in support of the city's comprehensive plan and sustainability climate action plan goals. Next slide. So you all may have heard about the Safe Streets for All action plan. It is this Safe Streets for All action plan and the bicycle pedestrian transportation plan update are both multi-year planning efforts, and they do have a shared vision of enhancing safety and accessibility on the streets. They both focus on vulnerable road users and making places safer for walking and biking and supporting active and sustainable travel. But there are some key differences. So the bicycle and pedestrian transportation plan update will look at streets and off-street paths and trails. And this plan will culminate in recommended programs, policies, and infrastructure recommendations solely in support of walking and biking and rolling. Whereas the Safe Streets for All action plan also looks at vehicle-vehicle collisions and has the ultimate goal of eliminating traffic deaths and injuries for people using all modes. Next slide. This plan update process began about 6 months ago and will be carried out over the next 1.5 years. We are currently developing the vision and goals. We have a community workshop next week to talk through the vision, help develop our vision statement. And we are conducting some existing conditions analysis right now to understand the needs and concerns related to walking and biking and how those have changed since the prior transportation plan update about 10 years ago. This summer, we will begin to develop recommendations and changes to programs and policies, and we aim to be taking a final plan to council for adoption in May of next year. Next slide. Next slide. And we have broken up this planning process into 3 main phases of engagement. We are in the wrapping up the visioning stage right now and heading towards the needs and concerns, and then rounding it out with recommended projects and programs. And over the next 18 months, we'll have multiple touch points across these 3 phases of engagement. Each phase will include a series of working group and committee or commission meetings. In addition to this Parks and Recreation Committee, we will meet with the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee, the City School Transportation Safety Committee, the Rail Committee, the Planning and Transportation Commission, City Council, and we have convened an interagency staff working group as well. Next slide. So here on the screen, you can see we've already participated in one pop-up event. We were at the Bike Palo Alto event in October, and we'll have an upcoming series of workshops in April. We also had posted this interactive map where we were gathering feedback from September through December, and the screenshot illustrates kind of the number of comments we received. I think the next slide summarizes more of what we heard. If we could go to the next slide. So that interactive map, we got 956 unique comments, and we asked people to categorize. We offered 4 different categories. 54% of the comments submitted expressed a safety concern. 29% were suggesting infrastructure was needed. We have a log of all of these comments, and we'll be going through them and coming up with a more descriptive summary and using that to also inform our recommendations. I mentioned the committee and working group meetings we have met with. You are the last group we're meeting with in this first round of engagement. We heard that safety was a top priority and that there was pretty consistently demand for high quality infrastructure and across barrier connections. And at the Bike Palo Alto event that I mentioned, there were 40 active participants. Many of them spoke up in support of separated bike lanes. Next slide. Next slide. In addition to the community engagement, we are conducting technical analysis. The box on the left is what we've mostly completed. So we have developed a facility inventory and a map that was shared in your packet. We have created a programs and policies inventory that looks at various planning documents to understand what policies in support of walking and biking exist today, and helps us identify gaps or needs that could be addressed by this plan. And then we've also conducted a bicycle-friendly community assessment using the League of American Bicyclists bike-friendly community application. We have begun the bicycle level of traffic stress analysis. This LTS is a rating given to a road segment or a crossing, indicating the traffic stress it imposes on bicyclists. And the level of traffic stress ranges from 1 to 4, with LTS 1 indicating a low stress facility and LTS 4 indicating a high stress facility. The results of the LTS analysis will also be used to inform the locations and types of treatments needed to create a low stress or all ages and abilities network. We are completing a barriers analysis, looking at linear barriers like freeways, creeks, rail lines, and barriers near transit, like gaps in sidewalks or disconnected networks that force people to take detours and increase the lengths of their trips. And this will again help us identify the locations and types of treatments and facilities needed to create more direct connections for people walking. Our safety analysis will use data from the Safe Streets for All action plan team, but we will look at a subset of that data. We will be focused on the collisions with pedestrians and bicyclists involved, and we will be doing a spatial analysis to look at where these crashes occurred. We'll also be looking at the severity of the collisions to identify the high injury networks for these modes or the streets which where most of this crashes occur. And we'll be looking at other variables in the data to identify patterns or trends that will help us understand common risks and be able to more effectively identify treatments that could counter those. And lastly, we'll be evaluating the activity and benefits of bike and ped improvements. So we're going to use counts and location-based data or big data to estimate existing and future walking, biking, and rolling activity in the city. And that analysis will consider the quality of the biking and walking network as it exists today, and then also look at what might happen, how many trips might be converted from driving trips to walking or biking trips with the implementation of the projects that we recommend as part of this plan. Next slide. So I mentioned the literature review. We reviewed over 20 documents to understand common themes and topics in their vision and goal statements, in the existing policies and programs, in needs and concerns that were raised in the studies, and community feedback that might have been captured. So because we know that a lot of planning work has already been done, and we really want to use that work to build on that in this plan. Next slide. And this is the existing facilities inventory. I mentioned that is the map on the right, which has already been updated in these committee and commission meetings. We were also seeking feedback to help us make the data more accurate and better represent the existing network. And this is the result of that. And this is the map and the underlying data that we'll be using in our technical analysis. Next slide. And here you see a synopsis of the bicycle-friendly community review. So the League of American Bicyclists has been evaluating communities since 2003, and Palo Alto has been a bicycle-friendly community since 2003 and a gold level community since 2010. But there is still work to do and opportunities that we see. Based on our evaluation of their criteria, we saw opportunities in increasing bicycle network mileage, but we don't just want to increase the mileage. We want to focus on gaps in the low stress network and make sure that they are quality facilities, they're safe and comfortable for people to use. There's also an opportunity to increase bicycle parking at key destinations. And that means long-term and short-term parking to make sure that people who are biking feel safe bringing their bike wherever they're going. And expanding bicycle education to get more people comfortable biking on the city streets. Next slide. Next slide. And coming up, we will have another meeting here in spring. I believe it will be at the end of March. We'll be completing our existing conditions analysis and hosting some engagement activities. That visioning workshop I mentioned will be virtual. It'll be held on Zoom next Wednesday from 5:30 to 7. And then we're going to be scheduling some pop-ups and walkabouts as one of our teaming partners, MobiCon, will be in town supporting that as well. And that is all I have for you today.
Thank you. We're going to open up to public comment unless there are pressing clarifying questions from the commission. Yes, for sure. Okay.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for coming to the Parks and Rec Commission for feedback. My question is, would you like to frame how you would like feedback from us? Are you looking for feedback specifically related to the purview of the Parks and Recreation Commission, or feedback in general, or opportunity for you to clarify?
Yes. Well, all feedback, we will absolutely take all feedback. We are here today to understand your perspective as a Parks and Rec commissioner, but all feedback is welcome.
Right. And, again, we're here to introduce the effort. At a later time, we'll definitely have more material that you can provide feedback on. I think at this time, we're just at a high level, love to hear your perspective from PRC. And I know there is that slide with the bicycle friendly community review that just asks simply if you agree or if there's other areas of opportunity that you see. So if there's an area of focus for feedback, we can receive it from this slide as well. Thanks.
Commissioner Oche.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. If you could speak a little bit more to clarify the status, based on what criteria is the gold current status and the platinum, while, foreseen, as our goal? What criteria is that based on, please?
Yes, so the League of American Bicyclists application has 6 evaluation categories, and there are multiple questions within each category that applicants are required to respond to. This plan, while it is an aspirational goal to get to platinum, it is not an objective of this plan. We are using that framework to help us identify opportunities, if that is helpful. Okay. Okay. We do also have a technical memo that goes into detail on the bicycle friendly community criteria and provides more description in terms of the evaluations that have happened in the past to get Palo Alto to gold, and also what areas of opportunity there are, or what might need to happen to get to platinum.
Commissioner Cribbs.
Yes, thank you. Just a clarification in the demographic analysis, the last sentence, there was just a definition that I didn't know. I didn't quite understand it. It says there are no equity priority communities or disadvantaged communities within the city of Palo Alto. but there are equity priority communities in Stanford University and East Palo Alto. Could you explain what it means about Stanford and East Palo Alto and sort of what that relationship is? Just the term.
Yes, so equity priority communities is a term defined by MTC
Okay.
to identify, it uses demographic index. So I think there are 7 different indicators they look at. They look at some of the categories that are in here. So degree of education, limited English proficiency, race, income, to identify geographic areas that they term equity priority communities. Disadvantaged communities is a similar type of sociodemographic analysis, but the thresholds are different and it's a federal definition, and those are used to direct funds or identify like areas that might be more competitive for grant applications, as one example. So there are MTC designated equity priority communities in Stanford University and East Palo Alto. For this plan, that means we might seek to locate some of our engagement near those communities to make sure that we do involve them.
Okay, thank you. So it's an MTC definition,
Yes.
essentially. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wei?
Thanks, Chair Brown. Thanks for the very thorough report, and really enjoyed reading your report too. In your report, there is data that's saying Asian Pacific Island language makes 22% of the population, around 32% of the group not speak English proficiently. So you also present the bike education, especially for English learners. Are there multi-language education provided for the residents to understand a bit more thoroughly the safety issues, etc.?
I am going to defer to Sylvia Starlack, who oversees the Safe Routes to School program, on the question on whether multilingual education is available for folks. Short answer is I would say yes, but if Sylvia's here to confirm.
Yeah, it came from when I was in Bayland, I saw a group of Chinese coming here, didn't know what, and the language laid out was English and Spanish. So I become a volunteer guide for the afternoon for them. So I thought since our own resident has quite a big amount of people not speaking English proficiently, maybe there's something we could offer. And the second is probably related to the gap we have to apply for the platinum level. Currently, I'm a city biker, and a lot of my friends are avid biker. It's lower the emission and it's healthy lifestyle. Currently, what I notice, Bryant's main one have bike lane is a percentage how many of our streets will have the coverage of bike lanes.
The question being what the percentage of our streets currently have a designation for bike lanes?
How would you increase that in terms of, more safety, more bike lanes?
Well, short answer is through planning efforts such as this planning document that literally draws lines on a map that says here is where we have existing facilities and here is where we want future facilities to go, and how you understand where those future facilities will be is through a selection criteria that we will develop through this planning effort.
Okay, so it's not decided the percentage of coverage of bike lane yet?
No, some of the goals that we are looking at are SCAP goals that speak to different mobility goals, but we don't in this plan establish a percentage for the number of streets that should have bicycle facility types.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's also covered in the platinum level as one of the criteria or no. Just coming back from Europe, there's so many bike lanes almost on every city street. Yeah. So I'm just curious, what's our percentage is as a golden standard in
Commissioner,
America?
I'm just going to take a brief pause and open up for public comments since we're getting more into comments. Javad, are there any?
There are no
Public
hands
comment?
raised online or in person. Actually, I do see one. Let me get her. Lynn, you've been unmuted and you have 3 minutes to speak.
I was one of the few people who's been hit on the Bryant bike lane, and I haven't ridden my bike since on the city streets. The transportation director at that time said it was very unsafe to ride from the Bryant Street, Colorado connection to Midtown. And he recommended that all bicyclists just ride in the middle of the street and make cars wait for you. So I was looking for stats to see how many bicyclists are using each of those bike lanes. And I wondered if the Colorado connection is very good from the Ross Road to Midtown on Colorado. But when you cross Colorado, it's quite dangerous. Anyone who's ridden that knows it can be quite hairy, especially at a rush hour. And I wonder if that's something that is going to be looked at, and that would be the connection from Bryant to Middlefield, Midtown Commercial on Colorado Avenue. That would be one of my first questions is that going to be looked at? And the second part of that is I think you're not getting much participation from the people who use that the most, which would be Stanford students who live near the Bay Shore where it's more affordable in those apartments. And there are sometimes huge numbers of people coming from Stanford, and they clearly are not our after school kids, because that's a different time of day. That's always the same time of day. And these students are riding at night frequently. It's very dangerous and very hard to see them at night. So I wonder if that's something that could be looked at. So that would be a second thing. One would be the stats for the bicyclists on each of these bike boulevards. And then the second part would be somehow engaging them, and you know where they all live, or where a lot of them live. So that would be, I think, an important connection to make. And the third one, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, any other hands raised, Javad?
No more hands raised, Chair.
Great. We'll close public comment and return back to Commissioner Wei.
Thank you, Raj. I'm just curious, is there like a golden standard? How much of our city should have bike lanes, basically? Is there like American standard, European standard?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the bicycle friendly criteria do have a target for percentage of bike lane coverage, but this has come up in discussion in past commission meetings before. It's not only about the network coverage, it's also about the quality of the network. So a standard striped bike lane is not the same as a separated bike lane. And we want to be able to also recognize that in our analysis and our plan. So we haven't laid out targets for bike network coverage. We do want an all ages and abilities network, which means lower levels of traffic stress and more accessibility. So more places that people can get to on those low stress routes.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very crucial for our community, especially the youth and elders.
Yes.
Yeah, in the safety bike lane. Thank you.
Yeah.
And just a quick follow-up to your question around instructions and multilingual. We are not teaching in Spanish or Mandarin, but we have translated some of our walk and roll maps, but it is definitely an opportunity area.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a great start. Thank you.
Commissioner Kleinhaus?
Thank you. New chair. I have a few questions. One is, how do you identify gaps? Who do you ask?
Yeah, we look at using our technical analysis, we look at where there are high stress intersections or segments where even strong, confident riders wouldn't want to ride because you'd be sharing a lane with vehicles going over 40 miles an hour, as an example. So that would be a gap in the network. It would be a barrier that would make somebody with a child probably choose not to ride. We also look at sidewalk connectivity and distances between crossings. So that's the out of direction travel that I mentioned earlier. And we'll be getting feedback from people who walk and ride on the streets and hear more about like Lynn's experience as well.
You reached out a lot to the bike community, which is organized, so it's easy to get to ask them questions at events. But most of the people who are pedestrians just walk around, they walk to the parks, they walk the dogs, they just walk to walk and exercise. How do you get to them? They're not organized.
Yeah, it is harder. And we are using multiple methods and strategies, coming to groups like this and asking you all to spread the word. We're working with the city's communications team for their social media. I think we had something on the city's homepage that was directing people to our interactive map as well.
So
Yeah,
I have one suggestion.
Please.
You're asking us. San Antonio is going to become much busier, given
Right.
that so many people are going to live there. And to get from San Antonio to most of the schools and shopping and everything in Palo Alto, you can use Middlefield, obviously, but that's high stress, you would
Mhm.
think. Take a look at Grove and see if you can put a bridge over Adobe Creek, because that would really connect through the Green Meadow, the greenhouse or Green Meadow development, and towards Leghorn in Mountain View. And that whole area can become a corridor that doesn't exist right now, but could be. And there are people that use it, but then you can't cross the creek. So you do have to walk all the way around.
Mhm.
So that's one gap that I think would be of interest. Another question I had is, what are the safety concerns that people bring up mostly?
Most comments are about the speed of vehicle traffic or the lack of visibility around like sight distance at certain locations. Yeah, I guess that's all I can offer right now. You are
Okay.
able to click into the interactive map and see other people's comments if you're interested in digging
I'm
yourself.
expecting you to do
We'll
that
also be
homework for
summarizing.
me.
What's that?
I'm
Maybe not,
expecting you
maybe
to do
not.
that
Okay.
homework.
We'll also
Um,
be doing, providing more of a summary that'll give a better
So
description.
from seeing generally comments that came up before when we were looking at the electronic bikes and so on, there are conflicts between electronic bikes and pedestrians and regular bikes. And there is generally, when I looked at the time and did some research on injuries, electronic bikes had a lot more head injuries and serious injuries than regular bikes. And I don't know if you're looking at that at all, but I think it's important to look at it because people become seriously injured, especially children. So that's something to look at. And I guess what I wanted to know is whether the work that we've done and are continuing to do on the parks in relation to bike parking, electronic bicycles, all of that. We have an item coming up and we're looking to meet with you actually because Nellis and I are ready to meet with you and share before we bring it to this commission, but we haven't had the chance to meet yet and show you what we are looking at and see what you think about that. We're looking, but I'm interested to know if you're thinking of reopening what has already been decided.
I wouldn't, call it a reopening, if you will. I know that the commission and the city council recently decided on the e-bike policy and unpaved trails. I don't think we're looking at, looking at those conversations again, especially if there's state law that, takes the lead over, city law. But what I would say is, I think we're looking at revisiting 2012 plan and making sure that policies, programs, and facilities that we selected in 2012 still carried over and make sense in today's context. There may be some that we also look to enhance, such as the e-bike policies with the growth of e-bikes during the pandemic. I don't know specifically what the policies will relate to, but I know that there's conversations that we need to have around e-bikes, shared micromobility, and scooters and other fleet types that have come up.
Okay, I may have more questions later, but I'll let other people.
Commissioner Greenfield?
Thank you. And thank you again for presenting to us. I'm a strong supporter of improving our biking infrastructure and for pedestrians as well in the community. I'm an avid bike commuter, biked here tonight from the other side of town. I attended the Bike Palo Alto event. I thought it was great. I had a good conversation with Councilmember Vinker there as well. I thought the method of public outreach at the event was very good, and it seemed a great kickoff to your process. Some questions. First, starting off with more of a qualifying question, can you define path versus trail and what you're referring to there? I know we went through the same discussion when we were reviewing the e-bike policy.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we do have a definition. Where did you see that terminology on the map? Was there a path versus trail?
This was, you talked about it in your presentation, paths and trails.
Oh, okay.
In terms of BPTP, doing streets and off-street paths and trails.
Off-street paths and trails. So I think the distinction there I was trying to make is that we are looking at like off-street. So paths and trails being off-street.
So does path mean paved and trail means unpaved, or?
We haven't defined them yet, but we will.
Yeah, so take a look at that, please.
Yes.
And then are you looking, are the open space areas within the scope of this as well as the parks?
Yes.
And so this would apply to all hiking trails within the open space?
Yes.
Okay.
Short of this becoming a trails master plan, then, yes, as far as, ensuring that I think signage was brought up earlier, access to these facility types. So there may be some overlap, but we definitely don't want to, reinvent the wheel if there's already existing documents that speak to that. And maybe that was part of your commissioner's question. We're not necessarily looking at reopening the bag, just leaning on existing policies or plans.
Okay, great. Thank you. So one of the areas I'm really interested in seeing how we can expand, and it ties in directly with the Parks and Rec Commission, as well as how to expand the very successful and very popular Safe Routes to Schools network and make it more of a global overarching safe routes network within the community, safe routes to parks, safe routes to libraries, et cetera. And I know that resources, both financial and staff, are an important component of this, but is this something that is being addressed and establishing a prioritization process for this within your plan?
Short answer is yes. I think a lot of times we think of these documents as looking at facilities, and that's very much top of mind, but there are those programs and policies that we want to visit as well. And I think that'll be part of what we look at. The Safe Routes to School program, I think is again, top of mind for folks, but more recently you've seen these growth of other types of safe routes to trails, safe route to transit stations, things of that sort. So yes, this would be the opportunity to to shine a light on those type of programs if we want to include those in this update. But to your point, it becomes a resource and bandwidth question.
So would it be helpful to get feedback from the commission in terms of which parks would seem to be priorities to establish improved safe routes to and open space areas and try to identify gaps that way? Obviously, if we're working on expanding this network, it's not going to happen with the flick of a light switch. It's going to be staged over time. So perhaps identifying steps would be helpful.
Right. Yes.
Thank you. Is there any, you want to improve bike parking? Appreciate that. Is there any kind of standard symbol that is used to help identify and lead bicyclists towards bike parking? Similar to a sharrow in the road, which is identified now more commonly as a shared roadway for vehicles and bicycles. Is there anything that can help identify where parking is located for bikes in more obscure? I mean, we're not talking about I'm not talking about University Avenue, but in some places where it might be less obvious, whether it be in open spaces and parks. One of my favorite examples is the golf course, which I stick in the mud and pushed long and hard to get a bike rack set up at the golf course. Why? Well, there's a cafe there. People might want to ride their bikes there. There's a small bike rack there. It's completely hidden, and I know where it is. I don't know if anyone else does. And anyway, that's kind of what comes to mind.
Yeah. I don't know that there's a standard. I've seen cities do it different ways, but typically include it in part of a wayfinding program. Yeah, it's important.
Thanks. And following up on e-bikes, so certainly state law has an overlay that defines a lot and limits what we can define. So I'm curious where you're looking to add adaptions and details. Presumably that wouldn't be on the city streets. That's pretty well defined, but there's more opportunity perhaps on the off-road pathways through parks and open space areas. And one specific, when we have an ad hoc that's working on updating our plan, but one idea that I've seen is that some national parks have policies where all e-bikes may be permitted, but they're required to be pedaled. And so this addresses the class 2 e-bike issue, which includes bikes that can be pedaled or operated without pedaling. And it's just kind of a common sense thing that we don't allow motorbikes in parks, yet we allow class 2 e-bikes. And so thinking about how to draft policies that might require pedaling on e-bikes. Also, that makes it very easy. It's very enforceable. Someone doesn't have to try to discern whether a bike is a bicycle or an e-bike or class 1, 2, 3, etc. So something to consider.
Just, I guess I would only respond by saying this is the opportunity, this plan update effort is the opportunity to take these into consideration, whether it's additional facilities in trail areas or access to trails or looking at the programs and policies. This would be the opportunity to do it. How we're going to do it is through developing a selection criteria, and part of that selection criteria could include access to open space, right? And we provide a points valuation or a weight that would determine, whether or not those routes are elevated to the top. Other examples could be access to transit stations or access to local parks, access to schools, things like that. That's the type of criteria we want to develop, which you all will be a part of. So this is the opportunity to try to take all those into consideration.
Thank you. And overarching question is, how can we help? And I think we're getting some ideas on that. So thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Oche?
Thank you, Chair. I have a bag of questions as usual. Thank you, Amanda and Ozzy. I will start by saying you're doing a great job putting the word out there. You shared the interactive map. I'm not sure if I heard correctly, but you talked about an app, right?
It was an interactive map.
Okay, so it's on your website, or is it an app that people could download, or is
I
it
wi-
just on your website?
I wish it was an app, maybe one day, but we do have a project web page. It's cityofpaloalto.org/bike ped plan. And both the survey link and the interactive map were on there. The survey and the map did close on December 31st of last year, and we're in the process of reviewing and analyzing that data that will feed into the existing conditions analysis report, which you will see at your springtime meeting.
Okay, thank you. You partially answered my next question. I was going to ask about the 900 or so respondents that you talked about in your survey. Was it just for those 3 months? And if people want to give feedback, are we going to stop them from giving feedback because we closed? Or like, how do we have ongoing correspondence with the community? I think an app is important because most people who are younger now don't want printouts, and we're all trying to save the environment, right? So I think that might be something we'd like to also think about. I also didn't see anything about leveraging on existing, maybe like local bike shops. I feel like they have a very major role to play in terms of helping us put the word out there. I also wanted to ask you if you could share more details about your next pop-up or walkabout. That might be a great opportunity for us to come by and say hello and also spread the word with the community as well. I have 3 more questions, so bear with me. You talk in your document, there's something about principles of good network design. I see in your slides, you mentioned high quality infrastructure, right? I'm wondering if the principles are the complete solution for the high quality infrastructure that you mentioned. If it's not, then what does high quality infrastructure require? That's one question I wanted to ask. Also, you talked about a misrepresented class 2 instead of class 3. I think it was part of what you reviewed in one document. I'm not too sure. So maybe if you could speak more about that, and also our plans in terms of addressing bike theft. I know you mentioned that in your document, but I want to see more and find out if there's anything we're planning to do besides that. Yeah, thank you.
So we will try to take one of those each at a time. But I think, and I know Sylvia wanted to chime in here on the engagement piece. And Amanda, feel free to jump in. What I'll say about the engagement piece is the interactive map and the survey were part of this first phase of engagement, but there will be other opportunities for the public to help shape this planning effort, such as the visioning workshop coming up next week, as well as the pop-up and walkabouts that Amanda mentioned. I would love to have that interactive map up forever. I think staff capacity doesn't just allow us to just continuously look at that map for recommendations. What I can tell you, though, is that if the public has feedback that they would like to provide the city or problems or concerns, that we do have the existing 311 method, which I believe does come in either a mobile format or at least a web format, and folks can provide geocoded specific location concerns similar to the interactive map. So the interactive map was just an effort to compile and get feedback for this effort. But at a larger level, if residents have concerns, we point them to the 311, which is in perpetuity.
So is that clear on our website that that's the mode of communication to get feedback?
I believe on the transportation page, we do direct folks to the 311 for those type of concerns. And it may live in other areas of the city's website as well. Javad, was Sylvia able to? Oh, awesome.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, commissioners. My name is Sylvia Starlack, Transportation Planning Manager for the city. I am managing for the time being the Safe Systems for All Safety Action Plan that Amanda mentioned earlier in her presentation. And as part of that work and community engagement, we've shared some of the same community engagement resources like the interactive map and the survey. As we've spoken to folks and heard folks in the community, they have also asked for the interactive map to stay up. And as part of the work that I'm leading right now on this safety action plan that addresses safety for all modes of travel, not just biking and walking and rolling and scootering, but also includes driving. I believe we're going to, as a part of that, once that plan is adopted, have an interactive map available so people can report things that they don't feel they can report easily right now, like where near misses have happened, or places where it is difficult to cross the street or things like that. So I definitely appreciate the comment and the request for an ongoing interactive map. I'm currently looking at different applications and websites where that we could use for that kind of continuous feedback. So thank you so much for the comment.
Oh, right. Yes, you asked us to share details about the next phase of engagement. We don't have everything planned out yet, but what I can say is there will be some concentration of activities the week of April 15th to 18th, like that Tuesday through Thursday. That's when our teaming partner MobiCon will be in town, and we'll be organizing community design charrette and some walkabouts in that time period. We'll also likely be participating in the Earth Day event on Sunday, April 21st. And there may be a bike ride in partnership with Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition in the month of May to look at some housing sites, likely on San Antonio, look at those connections.
And I think we're looking at the May Fete event as well. So there's a lot of street level engagement that we're doing. I think we're shifting a lot from the virtual to hybrids to a lot of in-person for future phases, which we're looking forward to getting out there. And I know there were a lot of other questions in there. If you don't mind repeating some of those.
I've got them marked down. Yep. Principles of good network design and what is high quality design. If we implement the principles, we should get the high quality. Quality is a jargony term that we can do a better job defining. I think when I think of high quality bicycle infrastructure, I think of something that will get a low level of traffic stress. Now, it could be a bike boulevard that is more of a shared space, but that has design that reinforces slow vehicle speeds and reduces vehicle traffic. Or on higher volume, higher speed roadways, it would mean more separation, like lateral separation, so wider bike lanes with buffers, and vertical separation, so creating a separated bike lane or a class 4 facility to just make people feel safer. For people walking, it's often the intersection control or presence of curb ramps or high visibility crossings, reducing crossing distances, so creating more space for people at the intersection corners or in the medians, treatments like that.
I have a related question from your answer. So is the separated bike lane more recommended, or are you going to use various hybrid models?
It will depend on the context.
Okay,
Yeah. It's not always going to be the recommendation.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner O'Shea, did you get all your questions answered? No.
Not yet. So, I think the other two were in reference, one was in reference to the slide. One of your slides that talked about, a category, class 2, misrepresented as a class 3.
Oh,
Yes, and then
okay.
also the bike theft. And then I have an additional one. I wanted to ask about, so what criteria do you use in measuring the collisions? I heard you say something about severe collisions. So what classification do we use?
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
The class 2 versus class 3, that was on the slide looking at our existing facilities map. We used a data set provided by the city that was not accurately representing facilities on the ground. So the data set might have shown that it was a class 2 facility or a striped bike lane, where in fact it was a class 3 facility or a facility that had pavement markings or sharrows and signposts. So that was just to get people to be thinking about what might be wrong about the map if they were giving us feedback. The bike theft, was that, what was the question around bike theft?
So there's just one reference to it, and I'm
Okay.
wondering, since you identified it as a need,
Yes.
what are the steps that we're potentially looking at? And then also I talked about, are we considering any opportunities to leverage on using, existing local bike shops?
Right.
To get the word out there.
Yes. We will be working with local bike shops and community partners to help get the word out. I don't think we've done much outreach to those businesses yet. But thank you for the comment. I agree that is a good way to get the word out with folks who will be interested in this project. The bike theft, for people who ride bikes, I often hear, and I experience it myself, like my feeling of, will my bike be safe where I'm going to lock it? E-bikes are quite expensive. Normal bikes are quite expensive and you don't want to come out and find it missing. So secure bicycle parking. So more secure bicycle parking, people believe will increase rates of cycling in general.
Commissioner Kleinhaus?
Thank you. I have a question about East Meadow Circle. It started with being a traffic circle. Well, first there was no infrastructure for bicycle, and there were also no accidents. Then the circle was added, created a huge mess. And it's still messy after they added the 2 stop signs on 2 sides of the 4. And I was wondering if there's any chance that that will be removed. It has been, I live near there and I see there's still near accidents. It's still dangerous and it doesn't make sense. It worked just fine before that was installed. And I was wondering if there's a way to remove it.
So I can't speak to specific locations and whether or not we can look to remove improvements that were recently installed, but I can tell you that, through this planning effort, we will be looking at all facility types to make improvements. So it's just a matter of whether that other folks in the community have similar concerns and whether that raises to the top about needing to look at again or redesign. But it's not for me to determine. This is a community-led effort.
Most people gave up because after all the requests, there were some modifications done and then they put stop signs at the circle. And at this point, people just gave up. They still don't like it. It's still dangerous.
Right. What I can say is that it is being monitored by the Office of Transportation Engineers. But again, I can't speak to specific improvements that the city is looking at making.
Okay, I want to say one other thing that a friend of mine who used to manage transportation for a very large company around here told me once. Sometimes having crossroads increases the risk of accidents. Having delineation of bicycle on roads also does, because it decreases the attention people have to pay, both the drivers and the users. And often the reason cities do that is because of lawsuits, because, oh, we got to do something, because if we don't have that infrastructure, then we're exposed to lawsuits. But in terms of safety, I think all of us need to understand that just having lines or all these things that we're trying to do are not always increasing safety. And I think because human nature, it's like, oh, there's a line there, I can cross, I don't need to pay attention. Or yeah, there's a few lines on the street. And so the schools added cross guards because of that, because people assume that they don't have to pay attention. So that's something to keep in mind, that's all.
Commissioner Greenfield.
Thank you. I have some follow-up questions, and I'll start off with traffic circles. I have a different opinion on traffic circles in general. I think they could be great. It's got to be really frustrating for transportation staff that our community can't figure out how to use them better. And I'm not sure what the answer is. Sending the community on tours to Europe to watch how they use them probably isn't the right answer. I think they're a great approach. I think that is a good place for it. I know there's some consternation that the stop signs had to be put in. The bike boulevard was prioritized for through traffic, whereas the busier road got the stop signs. But whatever it takes to figure out how we can help the community learn how to use these more effectively, I'm supportive of. Looking for clarification on El Camino in terms of what's under city purview versus county purview and the Grand Boulevard plans. And could you speak a little to what's happening there?
So as I'm sure you're familiar or aware, El Camino Real is owned by Caltrans. And so I think it's ultimately their purview about what facility types go in their facility or in their facilities. I think the role that the BPTP update can play is talking to the community and understanding access points to El Camino Real, either to access El Camino in the event that Caltrans proceeds with plans to install facilities, or simply to cross El Camino for either school routes or just general bike and ped trips. So I think there is a role for the BPTP to try to align with Caltrans vision for that El Camino Real corridor, but ultimately it is their facility.
And what information do you have in terms of timing to understand what Caltrans vision for the local portion of El Camino Real will be?
Feel free to jump in here, Sylvia, but it's my understanding that there's a letter that I think the city is going to receive a response from Caltrans. I believe the city manager sent a letter to the agency in December of last year requesting more information. And I think the city is waiting on either a final signed letter with corresponding attachments or just the corresponding attachments.
Correct. You're right. We're waiting for the whole package to share with the community regarding Caltrans's response to our city manager's questions regarding their plans. So I'm hopeful we'll have something in the coming week or so, but it depends on how soon Caltrans can send us all of their attachments.
So it's fairly imminent.
I hope so.
Hopefully. So it's in progress and it will happen when it happens. But hopefully pretty soon. Great. As far as the goal and challenge of increasing the network through the community, that, to me, that translates to adding additional bike boulevards to really improve the thoroughfares and the increasing connectivity. we had challenges last time we've added a bike boulevard. I'm all in favor of them. I enjoy using Park Boulevard all the time, and Bryant and others. Is there anything you can is it what kind of feedback how can we help with this process in terms of helping identify paths forward?
I mean, at a mid to high level, I think as we engage through this process, please share with your networks the opportunities for them to engage and also share their input on where they would like those either enhanced facilities or new facility types. Again, at a mid to high level, from a staff's level, we hear a lot of support for bike boulevards, and whether it's enhancing existing ones or thinking about creating spaces for new bike boulevards. I think that's something that the community supports. Obviously, Bryant Boulevard being the first in the country, I think that's referenced a lot in the community.
And I also think what you were offering earlier about the prioritization and forming our prioritization, we will be using like high level access to transit, access to schools, access to open space. But if there are specific parks or specific trailheads that get more activity and are likely to attract more people who bike and walk, that would warrant more focus and attention, or at least earlier implementation of recommendations, that would be helpful.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Krebs?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for the discussion and all the questions and all the comments. And I'm pretty excited that we have the opportunity to do this, and was interested in the fact that we got a grant to do this. If we hadn't have gotten the grant, would the city have pursued something like this?
I will defer to Sylvia on that answer, but I can tell you that most cities do bicycle and pedestrian transportation plans, and they're updated about every 5 to 8 years. So it's just, I think we're overdue, and I think the community would also tell you that we're overdue for an update. But Sylvia, feel free to chime in if I didn't already answer the question.
Yeah, no, I think you did, and maybe Amanda can back me up. I believe that we have to have a bike plan if we want to secure certain kinds of funding. And you know, if you put forth, if you try to write a grant and the project that you're writing it for does not appear in your adopted bike plan, then you lose points. So we likely would have done it anyway, but there happens to be a few local sources of grant funding for bike plans. So it's a requirement, but you know, and there is money around for it.
Well, I certainly appreciate the fact that we have the money to do this, and it's going to be really terrific to see the results of all the work that you all are doing. A couple of things that I really appreciate. One was the list of all the partners that you're working with. And the second was the pretty intensive information about community engagement, which I think we all feel like is really, really, really important. I like the fact that you're looking at bike pack parking different places, because as Commissioner Greenfield says, there's not very much around. So that was a really good thing to see. The one thing that I would like really love to request is that if we could, as a community, convince all of the people who bike, especially those who bike at night, to wear something that could be seen by everybody who's driving and walking and every place else. It was interesting as I was driving down here tonight, and having just read the bicycle report and what you were doing, I probably counted 5 bicycles trying to cross Middlefield Road, trying to cross Embarcadero, with absolutely no identifying bright clothing on it all. It was all dark stuff. So if, as part of community education, we could wave the flag and say, gee, let's all get together and make sure that we wear stuff like this, that would be a really great thing from my perspective. So thank you so much for doing this. That's all I have.
Back to Commissioner Greenfield.
One last question. So what does secure bike parking mean, or what does it look like?
Guarded.
More secure,
Yeah.
more secure.
Secure or long-term bike parking would be covered and enclosed. Think of like bike link lockers at Caltrain. People have key card access to them. Something inside a city garage could also be secure, longer term.
So how does it functionally operate for anybody off the street to go in and use it, while
Yeah.
keeping anybody else out of it?
It can be operated in different ways. Like people can have individual key card access, which they'll have to sign up for. Or I know like the YMCA actually has indoor bike parking at some of their facilities, which would be secure. So if businesses or community centers have a room, they could create a bike room. A lot of apartment buildings are doing that for their tenants, and for guests as well. So there are a few different ways.
Yeah, and I know for events like the Mayfest Parade, SCBC may just have a parking area that they have people's monitoring, so people
Oh,
can feel
valet,
secure
yeah,
parking.
yeah. That's great for events.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, I have a couple. Thank you for the great presentation. Obviously, we're at the very beginning, but it seems like already a lot of great work has already been done. So we thank you for that. One idea is just, and you mentioned the interdepartmental effort that you were working on, is maybe reaching out to the police department and just making them aware, not necessarily even to hunt them down, but if they do have anecdotal information just from patrol or even dispatch may get calls and frequent flyers. Similarly, the school district, maybe the crossing guards, if they could just forward any community engagement surveys or links or methods to them if they do have meaningful information, I'm sure they'd be willing to share. Because I'm also on the master plan ad hoc committee. In this plan, looking into the future, it's done, it's published, it's 5 years later down the road. In addition to the actual infrastructure improvements, as well as implementation of the policies, how do you envision this plan being utilized by staff on daily operations?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think traditionally we look to implement these as part of the budget process. I think there's money earmarked for implementing the bike and ped plan. So it's just a matter of staff going through the priority projects and shifting to implement them. Day to day, though, I think we just look to this as like a guiding document on what the priority tasks will be for that year, if you will. And that means, implementing, either moving forward on implementing the facilities or moving forward on implementing certain programs, or even going to before council to update a policy. It's essentially just like our guiding document, if you will. But it's tough to see a situation where we might reference it on a daily basis, but definitely looking at it to steer our work for the year. Sylvia, I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
That was a great answer. One tiny little thing, this isn't a daily lookup, but the bike plan is very helpful for when, for example, Public Works releases, or when they're about to release their list of pavement management projects. And so they bring that list to the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee, and that committee looks at it and to see if the projects are going to require restriping, addition of bike lanes, because when you have a repaving project, that's a good time. And it's also part of our complete streets policy that when we make changes to streets, we have to reconsider all the users of the street. So we do use the plan for things like that, where someone has a question, or we're supposed to do something on this road. What does the bike plan say? And then we go and look at it. if it's going to be repaid. So that's another time that we look at it. I mean, I look at it a lot because people ask questions about what is supposed to be happening on this street. So I actually do refer to it a lot, but that's just me. So, but we do use it for planning infrastructure investments, all like from other departments, not just us. Thanks.
Certainly. And I didn't necessarily mean you need to look at it, flip through it every single day. I just meant that we found that there are a lot of best practices that emerged from the master plan document. And that was sort of foundational to the department operations, and they're being referenced, maybe not directly every day in the work that's done. We just don't want it necessarily to be a bookshelf document. And I'm sure Amanda doesn't want that either, just sitting up there. And then just one question, mainly for the education of people on the call and the commission, so we can pass it along. Is there a way to subscribe to project updates on the website?
So not specific project updates, but you can subscribe to the transportation newsletter, where we will include updates on all of the transportation projects, including the bike and ped plan update.
Perfect.
So thanks for that question.
Any other questions or
I
comments?
have one.
Yep.
I was wondering about trees and street trees and how you incorporate trees into the plan and how do you treat them, and whether there are conflicts between our urban forest and the plan as it's being developed.
Short answer, and maybe I can answer this one, but I will say that high level, yes, there could be conflicts between, I think, goals of bicycle facilities and urban forestry. For example, sight line, sight distance issues, like maybe coming in and out of driveways. Urban forestry trying to maintain as many trees, and bicycle safety, looking at trying to clear some of those sight lines. So there could be potential conflicts. I think we will be looking at at least looking at a tree canopy, but I don't know if it drills down to specific sites that try to clear urban forestry for bicycle facilities. I don't think that's what this plan is trying to get to. I think where the urban canopy can come into play is providing shade opportunities for folks to have more pleasant ride, if you will, which would encourage bicycle trips. So I think that's where the urban forestry would come into play for this plan.
Trees are even more important to pedestrians because they spend more time in the street. So having
Right.
shade is really, really important. And you can see how different streets with shade or without are used differently by pedestrians. So I
Right.
think that this is an important thing to consider. A general comment, which would be good, is if in any, and I know that the city staff is looking at that, but planting native trees, if possible, wherever possible, is important when you're doing a new project. And only in response to Commissioner Greenfield, I'm not opposed to circles. I grew up with them. I love them. This one doesn't work. It just was that it was a design that just doesn't work. So it's this one. Not opposed to them as a category. But anyway, the trees is important to us in this commission, as it can. It's part of our purview as well. And so maybe a discussion of that. If you do have more information, come back next time and discuss the trees.
Will do.
Yeah,
Are natural elements included as a part of the infrastructure discussion and the infrastructure inventory?
I believe the canopy might be, if we have a layer for it, a mapping layer for it. I think that's where it would come into play. But I appreciate the comment around it in the context of pedestrians, not just bicycles, for looking for shade opportunities.
And please consider the native plants and
yes.
trees as well. If you probably have seen some of the Google projects and where they created habitat along their bikeways in North Bay Shore and in Sunnyvale. And so there's butterflies everywhere. It just, well, not this season, but later. And they really managed to get a lot of kind of a win-win situation for nature and for the pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. So if we could get to that, that would be really special.
And any comments by Councilmember Vinker?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just in my role as liaison, I want to mention, first of all, that this is the second time I've seen this presentation because it came to the Council Rail Committee that I sit on because of the crossings. And so we saw it in December. And I was interested in your questions about the interactive map because I asked many of the same ones because it was pretty awesome. I actually went online at the time and put in a couple comments of my own. And we asked about whether it could be extended because some of my colleagues had not been aware of it and thought it was pretty nifty also. I believe it was extended a few weeks through the end of the year. But we also asked about how it had been publicized. And it turns out it had been publicized by our city communications and a lot of the emails, Uplift Local and such. It had been on the front page of the website. It had been, I believe Payback helped get the word out. We queried whether or not we could keep it open after that because we liked it so much. And what we were told at the time was that it would be good to shut it down so that the data could be collected and analyzed, right? So that it wasn't just sort of a moving target that you'd get this much and you had to stop and analyze some more, but that there would be these other opportunities, as Mr. Arce mentioned, to have public input starting with the event next week. But I am thrilled to have learned tonight that we are looking at a more permanent one because I think it really is a terrific tool for our city to have. So I'm glad this discussion elicited that because I learned something. So I wanted to report that to this committee. And then also on the El Camino portion of this, while that's a state road, how we interact with it as a city is absolutely something the city should actively, in my view, advocate with our state. And I believe that is part of the reason for the city manager writing a letter to Caltrans. And it's both questions about possible bike lanes along it if we choose to change the parking situation, which is something that would likely come to council. That would be affected in part by these bike corridors. We were talking about whether we would want to move one over around Alma or we want one along El Camino Real. I've had bike advocate groups come to me in my capacity as a council member to advocate for their preferred option. So I think that is something that would have great impact on this plan. And obviously the crossings for safety issues are something where I believe we'll be asking the state a lot about how they can improve those because that's of utmost concern to our residents. So I wanted to share that. And finally, thank you, Commissioner Greenfield, for your questions about open space and e-bikes and all of that, because when that came to council in the spring of last year, I believe we thought it was coming back to council after it came here, and it hasn't yet. So I don't know if this is the vehicle or if there's some other vehicle, but we did what we did expecting we'd see some more after you smart people could do a deeper dive because it's within your purview as to how we handle these things in open space. So I don't know if you can tell us is this the vehicle or is there a different one where I can expect to see it again?
I might
I
defer.
could take that.
Yeah.
So we have an active ad hoc working on reviewing the e-bike policy. As Shawnee mentioned earlier, that they're looking to come back to the commission, but with recommendations. But before that, they want to meet with transportation staff, and so that's the process. So that everybody's involved with it, and it will be coming your way soon, hopefully.
That's terrific. Thank you for that update. Any rough estimate as to time?
I'll estimate spring because it's till June 20th. People don't really think of it that way.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And thanks for letting me speak, Chair.
Great. Thank you again, and we'll see you in March.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, moving on to the next agenda item is the golf annual report.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity this evening to present to the Commission on the golf course. I'm Lam Do, Community Services Department. This evening, I am joined virtually by our contracted golf course operator, Matt Malloy, VP of Operations with OB Sports and Troon. This presentation on the golf course is to supplement the staff report and to be followed with a question and answer session. In 2016, the Palo Alto Municipal Golf Course closed for 2 years for a course reconfiguration and renovation, and it reopened in May of 2018, renamed as the Baylands Golf Links. The prior course layout was a flat course with mostly straight fairways. Upon the renovation, the course was converted into a link style course. Link style courses have some elevation change. They have undulations. They have multi-directional fairways, which have made for an appealing course. When the course reopened in May of 2018, we brought on a full service golf course management company. This was a change from the prior having previously 3 service providers. So now with a full service operator covering all aspects from course maintenance to course play, to practice facilities, to merchandise sales and food and beverage service. We've experienced improvements to operations and customer service. Previously, it was a challenge for the golf course, but we've managed to do well with a single course operator. Since the renovations and transition to a link style course, we've had 5 years of operations. Over these years, we've seen a significant increase in revenue and rounds of golf played, with the exception of the last fiscal year where there was a decline. Much of this increase has coincided with the rise in demand for golf during the COVID-19 pandemic. If you see in fiscal year 23, we had a decline in revenue and rounds of golf played. Much of this is attributed to the record winter rainstorms that we experienced between January and April 2023, where we had multiple atmospheric rivers. During this period of January to April 2023, the course experienced 15.3 inches of rain, while the same period in 2022, the course had 1.5 inches of rain. So with a saturated course, there was much impact on rounds of golf played and revenue. There has been an interest in ensuring that the golf course has a player residency that consists of many Palo Altans. And for the past fiscal year, we've seen an increase from having from the old course to the when we reopened the new course, and then it continued that progression. We are now at about 40% Palo Altans playing the course. And this is an improvement from one of the concerns previously of the old course, where it was roughly about a fifth of the players were Palo Altans. So overall, the course is a regional draw with 85% play coming from Santa Clara and San Mateo County. I do want to point out that in the staff report, there is a mistake showing that 75% of players in Santa Clara County. It's actually 70% of players coming from the county, 40% Palo Alto residents and 30% elsewhere in the county. As a municipal golf course, most course play comes from public members. And there's also tournament play from various organizations. And then we have rounds played from golf clubs as well. We have an 18-hole and a 9-hole ladies club. We also have a senior men's club and a men's club. In addition to the clubs, there are youth programs at the course. Summer golf camps are offered. And the local high school teams also play at the course. This consists of both boys and girls teams as well. We are a participating member of the Youth on Course program established by the Northern California Golf Association. And then we have a working relationship with the First Tee of Silicon Valley as their teaching site as well. Since as there's interest in the First Tee, if I could highlight a little bit of their program. Their organization focused on youth development, teaching life skills and golf skills. Their teaching revolves around 9 core values, and these are honesty, integrity, sportsmanship, respect, confidence, responsibility, perseverance, courtesy, and judgment. These life skills are taught through the learning of golf. They have 2 types of programs. They have an on-site program and they have an outreach program as well. On-site at the Baylands Golf Links, they teach an 8-week program after school, 4 times a year during each of the seasons. Last year, they had 298 participants, and their program teaches a wide age range, grades 2 through 12. They consist of Palo Alto residents, but they are a regional program. So their regional program it draws not just from Palo Alto, but draws from East Palo Alto, draws from Redwood City and elsewhere in the region as well. They also have a program where they partner with local schools to do outreach. At present, they have 8 participating schools in Palo Alto and East Palo Alto and Redwood City, where they are able to take their curriculum to 1,600 students. They provide each of the schools with an instruction kit, a lesson plan, and equipment to learn the game of golf as well. The golf course does have issues and challenges. There a requirement stemming from the course renovation was mitigation and monitoring. Some of the mitigation had to do with wetlands, expanding wetlands on the course, which did occur. However, the monitoring program has not. So staff continues to work with ecology consultants and the State Water Board. The process has been slow, however. In the meantime, the removal of non-native weeds in the wetlands is being done by our golf course operator. And then we also continue to remind golfers to stay out of the wetland areas. And we've supplemented that with also some signage and fencing as well. The golf course also has similar to other businesses, has challenges in the labor market in order to hire. The competitive wages in the labor market is a challenge for them consistently. Maintaining a golf course does require specialized equipment that comes at a high cost. And then just like any other business, supplies and materials, the cost of that over the past few years has exorbitantly increased as well. The golf shop with merchandise sales could ideally do better. Retail sales of soft goods and hard goods has not been great. We do have a lot of online competition, and then we also have local retail competition as well. So what the golf course has done is pivoted to selling logoed merchandise with the Baylands Golf Links logo instead of selling plain golf goods. And then in regards to trying to sell more golf equipment, partnering with golf manufacturers to do demo days and also do fitting of equipment as well. There are down the line some ideally needs for improving practice facilities, the youth area, the short game area, and also the driving range. We do have discussions going on with the first tee about to address some of this as well. And then there is also has been an expression of a lack of cart storage and equipment storage on site for the golf course in order to become in order to really fully enhance and offer more services. In addition to that, the banquet space is quite limiting as it is now, and that could be something that is down the line would need to be addressed as well. So, so those are some of the issues and challenges we have. And then prior to concluding this brief presentation and moving on to the question and answer session, I do have some awards and recognitions to share with the commission as well. Last year, the golf course was recognized as being a top 10 in a double green, which is a design feature of a golf course where one really large green is played by two different golf holes. So this is in particular a rare feature in public golf courses, municipal golf courses. However, being that we have one by our designer, golf course designer, Forrest Richardson, it's nice to have this recognition. And then prior recognitions shared in previous years, for 4 years in a row, we were named one of the top golf courses that are open to the public to play in California. We also, our turf grass was recognized for a prior golf course superintendent maintaining a high quality turf. And then we also recognized for the renovation and facility design as well. So, and that concludes the brief presentation for now for our Q&A session. And also just a reminder, I am joined this evening by Matt Malloy of OB Sports VP of Operations as well.
Great, thank you, Lon. We'll begin with just clarifying questions and then I will open it up for public comment. So are there any clarifying questions for Lon? Commissioner Kleinhaus?
Thank you. Regarding mitigation and monitoring, you said that the expansion of the wetlands is on track, but mitigation is not. Can you clarify why not and what needs to be done for the monitoring to happen?
Yes. There are two components to the mitigation monitoring. One of the mitigation requirements for the golf course was to expand the size of wetlands that are on site, and that did occur. To ensure that the golf courses, the wetlands succeed is a monitoring program as well. And the golf course has not completed that. And as a result, we are in discussions with the State Water Board in regards to getting the monitoring going. We are working with ecology consultants as well. And one of the key steps is to establish our current baseline to where we should be to understand what we need to do in order to meet the requirements.
So the expansion of the wetlands happened when the reconfiguration was done. It's not recent.
That's correct.
Okay, so basically the mitigation monitoring that was required as part of the EIR in 2014, I think, has still not happened. And is now in discussion with the water board, but but we are still not mitigating the monitoring requirements since the golf course has been complete, is still not done. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so what do you, I guess one of the reasons I wanted to be on this commission is.
Class, can we pause for public comment? Sorry. If you have any public comment, please raise your hand on Zoom.
Lynn, I see you still online. You have been unmuted and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Yeah, actually, I had the questions that are being asked right now about the monitoring. I think it was a 5-year period of monitoring, which, if I read that correctly, has not begun. And I would like to know then, when would that 5-year monitoring begin? And how is the mitigation going to happen? What are the kind of things that they're proposing? One of the things I noticed when I did the walk along the levee between the golf course and East Palo Alto, I don't know what hole that would be, was the cut throughs, particularly of people who were walking. And it seemed to me that maybe that could be addressed through some kind of a stairwell or something, because I was a former golfer and I probably did the very same thing. So I think that that needs to be addressed. And I think you need to look at human behavior in that regards. Like it or not, you just do it. But the second thing I had on my list was the financials that were presented for 2024 in the budget. And it goes, I don't know if anyone's looked at that, from 2020 to 2024. And I wonder what the decline from 23, from 22, it was over $1 million. From 23, the net income, which has not been the actual, but is what they think it'll be, 780,000. And then next year, it will be 486,000. That's quite a significant decline from the 1.5 million, 1.1 million in 21 and 22. So I'm wondering, what is the contingencies that are mentioned, the expenses and the 20% of sharing and what have you, that will drop it so significantly from the million to the 500,000 range? And that's the two things I have on my list. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other hands raised?
I'm seeing no other hands raised online or in person, Chair.
Great. We'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Kleinhaus can continue.
Do you have a timeline of when, like the speaker asked, when is the mitigation monitoring, which was expected to start, I think, 2016 or 14? When is it going to start?
It was to start when the golf course was completed. We have not done it. We don't have an exact timeline in this part and as I mentioned earlier, it's been a slow process. We are continuing to work with the State Water Board. We are to determine that, but we don't have an actual timeline at this point. We hope to have it soon as we continue to work with them, but we don't have an exact timeline yet, and we can report back to the commission when we do.
The tragedy of our environment is when mitigation is not done correctly and not monitored to make sure that it's actually sustainable, we lose valuable assets. In this case, wetlands, which are really important, freshwater wetlands near the bay are rare and very precious. And I don't know how we can push it to be prioritized both by the city and by the water board so that the mitigation will actually happen. It's been more than 10 years or 10 years or so. So how does that get prioritized?
It's not that it's not prioritized. It's been a slow process, but it's.
Okay, why?
I think your opinion is clear on this topic, and I think staff gets the point and will come back with any sort of update on this. Is that fair to say, Lom, or,
Yes, it is.
yeah?
Can
Um,
we schedule a discussion of that? This mitigation issue is not just important to me, it's important to the community. There was an EIR process initiated by Palo Alto that resulted in mitigation requirements that did not happen. That's a legal issue. And I don't know how to resolve it. So I would like to have a discussion, and maybe the city attorney should be here or somebody to explain why the city is not fulfilling its commitments.
Okay, and staff received that feedback. I think maybe this could also be something that is regularly reported on the department report, even if there's no progress to report, or if there's conversations being had, just so that the commission is apprised of what's going on, if that's a first step, and then we can look to agendize any further discussions that may be necessary. Are there any other comments, Commissioner Greenfield?
Yeah, I share Commissioner Kleinhouse's opinion on this in general. This has been going on for a long time. I mean, members of the environmental community have been aware of the issue and the failure on our part to have the proper mitigations in place and have the monitoring started up is brought to the attention of the commission in 2022, if not earlier. I know in late 2022, commission members went on a tour of the golf course area to see some of the problem areas and to get a better firsthand view of what's going on. I appreciate limitation in staff resources. At the same time, I feel like we're hearing the same story for too long. I'm wondering, should the commission consider agendizing an action to send a direct message to City Council on this, out of concern for the damage that's being done and not and how we're not fulfilling our responsibilities.
I'd like to add that the other thing, one of the goals of the project was to enhance the habitat in that area. And that was supposed to happen by the expansion of the wetlands, which was a required mitigation, but also there was a goal and a statement that the canopy will be restored within 15 years. We lost hundreds and hundreds of trees, and the analysis showed that we'll plant some, and the canopy will actually exceed what was there before within 10, 15 years, I think. And it's almost 10 years, and that canopy is not going to ever bring back the canopy that we lost. So maybe we also need to look at potentially planting more trees.
I may be mistaken, but are you referring to the golf course mitigation portion in regards to canopy and the mitigation that was done off-site, which would have been done in the foothills?
Correct. The mitigation happened by caging trees in
Yes.
our Astrodero Preserve.
That's correct.
However, the plans and the statement in the EIR was that the canopy will be restored on the golf course by planting some trees, that these trees will grow, their canopy will expand, and they will create the canopy, the same canopy within 15 years. And they're not growing very far. So I'm just thinking we're not getting the same amount of shade and habitat and canopy that we thought we'll get from the trees that were planted, because part of the mitigation happened on the golf course, but these trees are remaining small. So potentially we could plant more trees. Maybe it's not a mitigation requirement, but it makes sense.
Thank you for the suggestion. I will bring that up with colleagues.
Other comments?
Thank you.
Commissioner Cripps?
Yeah, just to say, I was also on that tour. I think 2022,
November
in
22.
January or February. And the consultant who came, I don't remember much about the report that came back. It took a while to come back. Shani, do you remember what that report said?
They didn't actually share the report with us, but
Yeah, that's my memory that it didn't, but it was during COVID, so maybe that was the issue.
right. And the report showed that some of, that I saw it because Darren shared it with me. Some of some of the wetlands were getting invaded by an extremely invasive species that it was planted for the greens. I think that's Paspalum something, which is was planted on the golf course, and the mitigation requirements was required to monitor that it doesn't go into those wetlands, and it did. And it's very difficult to get rid of. So I also think that in some way, we need to kind of know how much it's going to cost us at some point. I don't know if there'll be fines involved or only the mitigation itself that needs to be fixed. But that was some of them, not all of them. Some of them were in a good shape, and some of them were not. And the problems with people making shortcuts and walking through, and in some area, there was even like facilitation of that by putting like wood chips and stuff. So all of that was supposed to be fixed. I don't know if it got fixed. And from what the speaker said, there is still people doing the shortcuts and going into areas that are supposed to be off limit. Part of the issue with wetlands, these kind of wetlands, is that in the soil, even when they're dry, there's critters there that will come back with the rain. So if you have people driving over them, we're destroying even if the wetland is dry, they're supposed to be dry part of the year. So it ruins the habitat. And so, I don't know like how, and I know that you've been trying to direct people, but I'm starting to think that we need to look for an alternative place for those wetlands that is not on a golf course, because, it's human nature to take shortcuts.
Well, what I remember is consistent with what you're saying. And I do remember the consultant saying there were some places at the golf course that the staff and the golf people were doing a very good job of doing what they should be doing. What I'm concerned about now is the communication with the water board that we don't really know very much about, and also what the plans are for the future. And if there's a deadline someplace or there are penalties someplace, I think we're all feeling like maybe we'd like to know a little bit more about it. And we certainly understand how short-staffed the department is. I mean, there have been so many vacant positions, and I'm sure that leads to some of this, but I think we all share the frustration of let's put a date on the calendar and let's try to get something understood. I would certainly support that.
I also wanted to say that the community is aware of that. I continue to receive questions from Native Plant Society and the Sierra Club and others who commented on the initial EIR. I think it was the Audubon and the Native Plant Society, but the Sierra Club got involved and people came to speak to us here, and people are asking me about it. The community is aware that there's a glitch there and wanting to see a solution. So yeah, maybe there's not much we can do, but we'd like to know.
Do you have anything to add, Commissioner? Okay.
Nothing about this, but I have something else about the golf report, if I could.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So I wanted to thank you for putting the slide in about the first tee.
Yes.
I'm still excited about doing something with the first tee, and I'm anxious to see the city move forward with an agreement with the first tee, and I'm hopeful that will be really soon. So if you have a date that there's some agreement that's going to go to council, that would be really helpful to know. Because I think it's an important program. It's good for golf, it's good for our community. And I also wanted to ask if you could go back to the slide that has the part about the first tee. How many girls are participating? Do we know that?
Yes, let me take a look here.
Yep, there it is, 41%.
Yeah, 41% of about
Thank you,
300.
getting there. Yeah,
Thank
thank you. So in terms of the agreement with the first tee, do you have a time that that's going to get?
Yeah, our discussion with the first tee, right now it's actually focused on an interim agreement. And the reason is because our relationship with them is memorialized in several different places. It's not necessarily one formal document. So we want to focus on putting it all in one document, which I've discussed with the representative George Moxie of the first tee. And I have a draft to share. I've informed him that I have a draft to share with him towards the end of this week. And that'll be an interim agreement. And once we are able to formalize that, we'll then work on a long-term agreement as well.
Mom, could you just give a brief overview on first tee for some of the newer commissioners and the relationship with the city?
Yes. The first tee is, as mentioned, a youth development program that began a relationship with the city about 14 years ago or so, and start out as a I forget the term here, a co-sponsorship program where the city co-sponsored them, provided them with a facility for them to teach and develop their program. The program has expanded over the years, and their need for facility space has also increased as well over the years as their program grows. They teach at 3 facilities. They teach here, they teach at Rancho del Pueblo in San Jose, and they teach at another golf course down in Gilroy. So regionally, they've grown as well. They've approached us, the city, to develop a long-term use agreement in which they would like to enhance our practice facilities with, in particular, a focus on the youth practice area that is right now underutilized, so that they can make the Baylands Golf Links sort of their primary home base teaching facility. They're looking at a long-term use agreement is their desire, so that they can ensure that they can fundraise and make facility enhancements with the money that they fundraise.
Yeah. Any other comments? Commissioner Wei?
Thanks, Chair Brown. Thanks, Lam, for putting together very comprehensive slides. And my daughter happened to participate in first tee as well years ago, and she really enjoyed it. So in one of the slides, I observe there's a sliding ranking. We used to be 19th and now ranking 24th. Do you know the criteria why we sliding down, whether the issues mentioned earlier, such as mitigation monitoring, is part of it? So like 2019, we were 13th, and now we're sliding down. And also, second question, in terms of competitive edge, how Stanford Golf Course compare to our municipal ones, or although I understand it's managed very differently.
The golf ranking, as you can see, right, going from 13th to 24th in a span of 4 years. Keep in mind that how we rank, we're up against new courses that get remodeled and redeveloped annually as well. But not just that, but also my personal thought, it may or may not be correct, but I think similar to the voting, giving opportunities to recognize other courses as well, which sort of downplays our course over the years. So, but there have been other courses that have been redesigned in the meantime as well. We're also, this is in defining as courses open to the public. It's not necessarily just municipal courses that we're ranked against. This is ranking against private courses that offer public play as part of the program or to supplement their membership play. So it's any course that doesn't not necessarily city-owned courses. So we are ranked against some very nice private courses.
Okay, I see. Thank you for the explanation.
Oh,
So
I'm
is the
sorry.
sustainability development part of the criteria as well?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
this is probably based on play features
Okay,
and playing conditions. But I don't think they take it to sustainability.
thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Oche.
Thank you, Chair Brown. Commissioner Wade just touched a little bit about my first question. Thank you so much, Lam, for sharing the reports and using very serene pictures. They were quite calming and relaxing for me. It's also great to know we have a list of awards and recognition under our belt. My first question is more related to any sustainability related goals. She touched a little bit about it, but just curious to know if we have any goals. I was hoping I would see something related to that in the update. I'm also glad that we have a senior men's category for play. But I also wonder if we can explore more opportunities to partner with community partners that, serve seniors, to see if it's something we can do as we try to make our city more age-friendly. I'll let you answer before I ask you.
Okay, thank you. In regards to sustainability, one of the key features in the design of this course is the ability to use more recycled water than we were able in a prior course. Aside from the landscape and the putting greens, pretty much all the fairways on the golf course are irrigated with recycled water. In regards to the programming and reaching out to senior organizations, I will work with my colleagues and also with our golf course operator to see if there's opportunities to expand in that area. There has been a focus on sort of youth programming, but that doesn't mean that we should not be able to focus on seniors as well.
Thank you. So for the reuse or using recycled or reused water, do we plan to track it anywhere, or how do we, and is that the only sustainability related action that we currently do, or do we have more plans to expand?
There is some discussion of seeing if the golf course can also further use more reclaimed water based on the potential of having a higher quality of recycled reclaimed water in the future. If that's the case, it could potentially be used on the greens as well. At present, we don't think that the greens would do well under that condition, but to be determined based on the future enhancement of reclaimed water.
Thank you. For the slide you showed about the summer golf camp, I'm wondering what ages are covered in that summer camp, and the fees, corresponding fees. And also for the first tee Silicon Valley, I appreciate what they're doing. But I'm wondering why, for the sake of equity, Commissioner Chris mentioned number of girls. For the sake of equity, it says number of Palo Alto schools. Not a lot of them are covered. So I'm just wondering what PA schools are covered and which schools are not, and what criteria was used to choose which ones to partner with.
Okay. Let me answer the question about this, which schools participate in the outreach program, and then I'll ask my Matt Malloy of OB Sports to respond in regard to the summer golf camps. The first tee's outreach at local schools is a voluntary program of the schools. So the first tee may either approach schools or vice versa. Schools may approach the first tee. And the determination of whether or not they did participate is whether or not the curriculum that the first tee proposes fits the needs of the school. And so they are, right now they have 8 schools participating. They plan on and hope for more schools to come on board. They do have a limitation, I would say. Too much of a good thing may end up being a difficult thing, and that there's only so much on-course teaching that they can do. The more outreach that they do at the local schools will become a feeder for it raises interest in the on-course program. However, the on-course program is at full capacity. So it's one of those things where it's great to have a successful and thriving outreach program. However, they do have a concern that they will not be able to meet the subsequent demand of the outcome of having a good outreach program, which would be the on-course participation, on-site participation.
Thank you. Are you able to share the names of the schools, please? I'm wondering if it's middle school or elementary or high school, or it just says schools. So just curious to know.
Let me, I don't have them. I could reach out to my colleague at the first tee. So, and then I'll ask for your other question, I'll ask Matt Malloy to chime in on that, please.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Matt.
So the junior camps are 5-day camps. They're from 8:30 to 12:30 each day. It's through the PGA of America, so our governing body, Professional Golfers Association. And there we maintain a 6-to-1 ratio, 6 students to 1 instructor. And we have, I believe, 18 to 24 students each session. There's 4 sessions per summer, and we are right now finalizing the 24 schedule.
Thank you, Matt. Where can the community find information about how to apply? I know we always run short of summer programs.
Yeah, absolutely. On the Balin's website, so balinsgolflinks.com. There's a header called instruction, and that shows all of our junior programs from the first tee to our junior golf instruction, how to sign up for the youth on course program. And as soon as that information on the junior camps is finalized, that will populate there as well.
Any other comments?
I have a question. In one of the slides, you had the expenses, and the expenses were $3.8 million, including debt services. So I have 2 questions. What is the proportion of the debt service, and is it influenced by recent changes in interest rates?
It is not influenced by recent changes in interest rates. We are locked in unless we refinance the debt. And of that 3.8 million, approximately 371 or 375,000 of that was debt service. It does fluctuate, though. The payment plan does fluctuate according to a payment schedule, but the
so it's about a tenth.
I'm sorry.
About a tenth.
Yes, roughly right now it's about 10%.
Okay.
Of the overall expenditures. It's about 371 or 375,000 of the 3.8 million was debt service. The future payment schedule, though, is going to increase based on a payment plan that is structured. It's not a linear payment plan. It's a escalating payment plan.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
And it seemed like in looking at the budget, that was the biggest delta for the net income, was that bigger debt service payment that was referenced in the public
That's
comment?
correct. In the future fiscal year, I think it jumps to $500-something thousand, which does impact the net overall.
Great. Just a couple comments. Great presentation. I particularly appreciated the details on the plantings and the course that was included in the presentation this year that I think were responsive to the interests, at least, of this current commission. The mitigation monitoring requirements, just trying to get a handle on how we can attack this in a way where there's a good communication feedback loop and what's realistic of what in terms of timeline would staff need to get us an estimate on what would be needed to execute the plan. So being able to come back and report to the commission and say, these are the resources that we would need to begin the mitigation monitoring program as soon as possible, get it to where it needs to be. And maybe that is, there are different scales of aggressiveness and being able to present that. I don't think that you have the, I don't expect you to have the answer on what that time frame looks like, but I think that that is something that is of interest to this commission. I know this is a discussion item only, but perhaps that's something that could be explored with the golf course liaison, maybe the most appropriate. I know Vice Chair Freeman is not here, but we could reach out and see if that is a possibility to explore as something that could be on a future agenda.
Thank you, Chair, for the comment and suggestion. I do think communication through the golf liaison would be appropriate in regards to, and that would be more of a short-term or more near-term updates and communication. In regards to your question about when would be a timeline to go back to the full commission, I don't have at this time. I would imagine it could be 2, it could be 3 months. But I think we can be in communication and during part of the process of as chair communicating with staff and determining future agendas.
Are there any other comments on that feedback from the full commission?
I know that staff is doing what they can, but we need to expedite this somehow. This isn't right. So I don't know how, but I want to see something happen there. It's been too long.
I share Ann's concerns about potential liabilities being incurred by our inaction, our lack of action, and perhaps Councilmember Banker would have some feedback for what might be an appropriate path for us at this point as well, as far as city council awareness of the subject.
Yeah, I was previously unaware until tonight about this, and I do think it's something that for us to become us, well, first of all, this commission, and then through it, our council, to become aware of the status, exactly where are we starting? Because I think you said it had been slow earlier, so it wasn't like there's nothing. So if we knew where we are and then had some kind of plan as to where we need to go and the timing, as the chair said, so like what resources you need, what is it that you would need to do? Would you need a consultant? Do you need plans? What is it? You know, that you would ask us for, because obviously you're low on staff, but I do think that if that's a problem, that we need to lift it up somehow to address it. Because if there are liabilities and obligations the city has, we need to at least be, you know, somehow intentionally acting to address them. So whether that comes, you know, can come quickly enough to this commission first, so that you all, having walked the course and seen and heard the needs, wants to, you know, analyze that first and send it up to us. But I'd be grateful if we could have some, you know, deeper insight into what you need to help us move this forward.
With city council in its planning phase for with city council entering into its planning phase for the coming year, and with the retreat coming up, how is this an important topic to having increased awareness on immediately? Or what's the time frame here?
I think it's a little granular for the retreat on Monday, so I wouldn't worry about that. But I will note we're entering our budget season. So this spring we'll be making our budget for 2025 fiscal year, which starts the second half of this year. And also it's not clear exactly what form our prior year's SCAP ad hoc will take this year. It may be reformed as a climate action ad hoc. It may become a Brown Act committee. It's unclear, but that would have been where sustainability issues go. So I think that needs to sort itself out before we know where, in council it should live. But perhaps if there's a vehicle like that, that could be where it would then go to a council committee that then could work with staff to prepare it for council if there were additional resources or if it needs to go to finance as the budget's being developed. So I don't think it's a hair on fire Monday issue, but I do think it's a first half of the year issue to at least get our arms around where we are and where we need to go.
Right. And I do think that is the consensus is trying to identify what resources would be needed and what sort of time frame would be associated. Again, being mindful that doing that in itself is a task and takes time and resources. But just seeing what can be done and providing an update back to the commission in whatever time frame is realistic.
Yes, just sort of being that it's multiple different questions, but similar. If I could provide a general responses. Yes, the necessary resources are being identified. It is being worked on as from a budget perspective. And we are currently working with consultants as well on this. It's not simply a staff. And then holistically, collectively, I think I do want to say that it's not necessarily that we don't prioritize this. I just want to reiterate, it is a priority. Unfortunately, we just are not making a lot of progress on it.
Can I ask why, if the slow progress is because of lack of responsiveness from the water board, or is it that they don't agree with what the city is proposing? Like, what causes the slowness in relation to the water board?
I think that it's not that we're in disagreement about what actually needs to be done. It's we are working towards the ideal appropriate steps to get there. And we don't necessarily have that nailed down. The prior requirements are being addressed, which ones can be adhered to, which ones perhaps can be modified or replaced to meet the same end goal.
I think that we don't need to get into the granular details of why something is not being responded to, or we trust staff that they're doing what they're doing to move this forward. And we've given them feedback very clearly, I think, on the fact that we want to see more progress and more information on what it would take to speed along the process. So I don't think we need to get into the why or how. Are there any other closing comments before we move on? Yes.
Yeah, I might just say, so, yeah, I think what you're sensing is just sort of partly a bit of an impatience because we don't really know whether we should be impatient or not. So I think that, knowing more would help us, help you, help us. And so it sounds like where we've centered is that you'll come back to this body first. And if that's, And I would just invite you if Ms. O'Kane or others wanted to come to the climate group or anything, or talk to me as the liaison, I'm happy to make myself available as well. But I will leave it in your good hands for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We will move on to the ad hoc committees and liaison updates.
So for the electronic bicycle ad hoc, Nellis and I have prepared, well, we worked with staff, we went on site visits, we talked to bikers and to people who are using bicycles in the Baylands and at Rastradero, and tried to identify where additional bike parking would be helpful. And also there was a direction from council to look at trails in Rastradero and the Baylands and to see whether some additional prohibitions should be implemented on bicycles in general or horses. We're more or less done with that. We didn't think that there was need to be a lot of changes in Rastradero or the Baylands to the policy that was adopted already. We did look at places where some bike parking infrastructure could be added. And we have to speak to the big pack people, and that didn't happen. In terms of expanding or different kinds of electronic bicycles, staff did not feel like there was any problem at all, where people are adhering to the policy that the city adopted. They seem comfortable with it. There were no conflicts. There were almost no violations. The violations they see is mostly on people speeding, but they didn't think that changing the speed limit would make a difference there because, you know, most people comply. So our recommendations are pretty minor, really, but we need to talk to BPAC, and that hasn't happened yet. That's my report. So as soon as that meeting happened and we listen to them and see if there's any modification, then we have a presentation ready that we can come and do here.
Ask a question about that?
Sure.
Sorry, don't mean to be out of order.
No, go ahead.
Thank you. Whereas I understand that as of right now, it doesn't seem like there'll be a lot of changes from the policy that was enacted last year. I think what we'd thought you were going to look at, and I think you did, I just want to make sure I heard it right, was whether there would be some paths and trails in open space that might be acceptable for some e-bikes and others that weren't. Because I think some of us weren't ready without having had a deep dive by people who looked specifically at, you know, some trails versus others. And it sounds to me like what you're saying is you came back and said, no, none of them anywhere. I just trying to understand better. Because I think that we left it very broadly negative because we didn't want to do things without being informed, and you're the ones who are going to go get informed.
We talked to the rangers a lot, and we spent quite a bit of time in especially the Baylands. At least I did. We had a few outings that we went together, but I also went on my own and definitely talked to staff a lot. And they didn't feel that there was a big difference, they did not feel that there was a demand. They said that that everybody seemed to be comfortable with what was adopted. So we didn't think there was a need to change and add electronic bicycles to a system that on the unpaved trails, it seems to work fine and people seem to be happy with.
Those are the people they're talking to. The people don't show up with their e-bikes when they know they can't ride their e-bikes there. The people who I hear from, there's a huge group that would like to be there. I'm not saying they should be there. I'm not going to express any opinion tonight at all. It's not my role here now. But I think that was the idea, was to say, assuming there was a demand, how do we feel about it? Do we feel it's, still problematic for reasons X, Y, Z? Do we think we could adjust it a little bit, in ways 1, 2, 3, and, that kind of thing, because that's what's going to be asked when it comes back to council. There's a very clear group who wants wide access, and I'm not saying that's appropriate either, but I think that it can't be that there's no demand. It should be that there are reasons we don't want them on certain trails, or they would get on certain ones at certain speeds in certain places and other ones, no, that kind of thing. And I'm just wondering if that analysis was done.
So, but I don't want to turn this into a discussion item because it's not,
Yeah.
but my recollection of the directive from city council was there were 3 things for the commission to review and return on. One was speed limits, which is currently 15 miles an hour. There's one I guess I'm not on the ad hoc at this point, so I don't remember exactly. But as far as the access question, I believe it was very specifically messaged that the request was to look in to see if there's trails where bike and or e-bike access isn't appropriate and should be limited. But I think the question asked was not to consider expanding where
right.
e-bikes could potentially be permitted to go further.
Yeah, the direction from council did not include revisiting the potential of introducing electric bikes on unpaved trails. That was not part of the of what we got from council.
Okay, that explains your report. Thank you. That does differ with my recollection. I could be wrong, but that I will go back and look. Thank you.
Any other ad hoc or liaison updates for the group? Yep.
Yes, I do.
Go
have
ahead.
Quite a few.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, I'm not so sure whether Vice Chair Freeman is on the phone or not, but no. So we are on the ad hoc committee for racket sports, and you all know there have been some letters about pickleball at Fletcher. And I believe that at this point, we had a meeting yesterday. The principal at Fletcher says that pickleball is doing very well indoors at Fletcher, and they're very content to have it continue that way. So when middle school athletics, which is going to offer pickleball, but not until the fall, goes to Fletcher and the other middle schools, Adam will work with them to do probably tape outside on the blacktop just for middle school athletics. But for now, the principal is happy with the situation at Fletcher. So that's good. Secondly,
Thank you for that update, because that was an item that was supposed to be on the agenda and was pulled just before the meeting.
Yes.
Just before the agenda was posted.
Yeah, there was some communication, and I think it's all worked out now. So that's good. The second are our funding partners. The Palo Alto Recreation Foundation contributed some funds to the Martin Luther King Day, which is great of them. And in talking to the Friends of the Palo Alto Park, they are ready to receive funds or to open a bucket for funding for the skate park, but they're not so sure what the status is of the skate park. We haven't heard, I guess, the final results of the traffic study that was done. So that just would be a question for the staff for the future, but the Friends of the Park are interested in doing that. They also are interested in the restrooms at the Magical Bridge at Metro Park, seeing if those can be moved up in the CIP planning, because it's getting to be a bit of a dire situation. And in addition to that, they're hopeful that there will be able to be arrangements for porta potties to be brought in until the Magical Bridge restrooms are updated or fixed. And then finally from, the aquatics report is that there are now bike racks at the entrance to Rinconada Pool. And the final report that I have is a really good one, and I asked Commissioner Oche to join me. But the Wellness Center had an incredibly wonderful community meeting last Wednesday. Kristen O'Kane, our Director of Community Services, did a great job with the presentation. The ad hoc, which is Vice Chair Freeman and Commissioner Oche and myself, were able to make some comments about the presentation before it was used, and I think we provided a lot of value. So we're pleased about that. We had quite a big turnout at the meeting. In fact, we had to put more chairs out. So that's always a good thing. Lots of good questions. It was taped because thanks to the city staff who did a great job. It was by Zoom and also in person. So there will be a tape, and the tape will be available to look at. I'm particularly interested in listening to the questions from the audience. I was appreciative that Commissioner Oche and Freeman were both there. And I think there's a lot of excitement in the room about the Recreation Wellness Center now. And the issue for now is where the site will go. So we're waiting on some information in the next month, and then the fundraising can begin. That's a very short report. I had hoped that we would be able to have show the presentation tonight, but we didn't get agendas in time. So it will be available next month, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to put it on a website someplace too, so that all the commissioners can know exactly, sort of what's going on and have the benefit of the thinking from the meeting. So Commissioner Oche, would you like to add your good questions and comments?
Thank you very much. Thank you for all your work for steering the ship. A big thank you to the city staff. You're
Yes,
right, you said it
very
all. One particular thing that stood up for me was the fact that we had Commissioner Way attend. That was
Yes.
really helpful to support us, and also for City Council Burt, who also showed up to clarify a lot of questions that were hanging in the air. I think the turnout for me was a great opportunity to hear from the community.
Yes.
For me right now is more of what the next step should be. And we all know we really, really want this to happen. So looking forward to what the next steps are, and the ad hoc committee is also looking forward to support the city staff on how we can make this a reality in Palo Alto. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So last Tuesday, City Council approved the staff recommendation of changes to the Title VIII tree ordinance, which were substantially the same recommendation that the PRC reviewed and supported late last year. In the staff report that came to us, there were other areas that were highlighted as potential other areas to potentially investigate that staff didn't specifically support at that time. The commission didn't support any of these, and in general, City Council didn't support them as well. The one addition that City Council added was a directive to staff and the Planning and Transportation Commission to look into public incentives for planting trees and growing the canopy, or urban canopy, and for increased improved educational outreach. The PRC wasn't included in the staff directive as the official community forum for the urban forestry section. I think the commission may be helpful in pursuing the second item, helping pursue the second item of improved educational outreach. And so that might be something that we could still consider to take up in it and make a recommendation to City Council on.
That was my amendment, and I wasn't smart enough to put PRC in there, but yes.
Thank you. Also, the Foothills Stakeholder Group met earlier this month, and there's some really interesting updates from Mike Warner, the supervising ranger at Foothills Nature Preserve. And of specific interest that I'll share is some reports of wildlife sightings, including a couple of female mountain lions. And in one case, there was a deer carcass kill, which was right outside the staff maintenance area down at the end of the preserve. And after a day, that was relocated to a safer area in the 7.7 acres. But there's a number of photos of, they did a lot of monitoring. It was very interesting to see what wildlife came and partake over the various stages. But it was some great nightlife photos of the mountain lions, and just a reminder that they're very real. They're there. They don't want to be seen, and there's some very good anecdotal discussion on seeing how the mountain lions would react to sounds, either of people or animals, that they would behave in just the way that we would hope they would, and trying to stray away and from human contact and remain invisible. So it was a very, very interesting report. Just thought it'd be interesting to share. Yeah. Well, I always carry a walking stick when I go hiking, and I've never seen a mountain lion, but I still carry it for other reasons anyway.
Thank you. I will pass on the photos of that endeavor. Any other ad hoc liaison updates from the group?
I'll let Commissioner Wade talk a little bit more on our liaison for Youth Council. I have minimal updates for sustainability and age-friendly today, but hopefully in our next meeting, I'll have more. We're still having ongoing correspondence with regards to recreation programs to be able to meet up with the work plan goal that we set when we first had our team discussion, when we set the goals last year. So hopefully we should make some more progress in the coming few weeks, and then also give feedback. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, as Commissioner Ochi said, we're still reviewing the recreation activity, and I try to go beyond just look at the Enjoy catalog. Also, the part of visit to Teens Council is called what the teens actually really interested to do, apart from the two sectors they have, civic engagements versus mental health. And also attending the Martin Luther King event, also looking into the collaborative efforts of those family events could be part of the recreation activities we can include maybe in the future as a part of a solution for the oversubscribed Enjoy catalog. The others maybe, and Commissioner, can also talk about the grants. Should I start, Commissioner Clerk, or you want?
Yeah, I think that you should start. Yeah, I think that it's a good report.
Okay, we have tried to engage the Silicon Valley Community Foundation a few times, and both in terms of Zoom meeting and in-person meeting. They have a organization change. The contact we have, Gina Dahmer, who's the EVP, just left, but we re-engaged the point of content, reinstate the 3 grants we may need for City Palo Alto. 2 are the Foothill Nature Reserve. One is the Mitchell Park Magical Bridge bathroom, which Commissioner Ochi just mentioned. So they hopefully can get back to us about the Foothill Interpret Center redo and the Buckeye Creek restoration. And there was a lot of email we saw with the Pardee Park bathroom. So the third project maybe can combine the bathroom in Mitchell Park of the Magical Bridge as well as the Pardee Park. And hopefully we can also engage the new chair for the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, who I happen to know in the past business activities. That's the updates. But there's also seem to be a perception that Palo Alto does not need grant, even if there's a lot of projects can be useful for the grants they're given.
One more update, I forgot. Last week, Canopy put on a webinar titled Creating and Sustaining Denser, Greener Cities. This is they had 3 speakers, including the former mayor of Mountain View. And it was a very interesting 90-minute webinar that I'll work on getting a video link to a recording of that and share it with the commission and with city council. Some very interesting things in terms of the balance between densification of housing and the green space, and some things were a little less intuitive, where multifamily housing is actually has more opportunities for canopy than single family residences because of the lower density of paved areas of streets, and also the increase of courtyards and common spaces, and helpful to see that trees and housing don't need to be at odds with each other. But I'll share the information on this later.
Definitely, please do. Okay, moving on to commissioner questions, comments, announcements, and then we'll move on to agenda topics after that. Okay. Future agenda topics. Seems like Fletcher pickleball, it does not need to be on at this time.
I don't think so at this point. No.
Okay. But do we think the Recreation Wellness Center update for February?
Very much so, yes. I
Great.
think so.
Anything else in February? That I didn't.
So we're e-bikes sometime February or March.
It's not, it doesn't depend on us.
It's-
We're
it's-
ready.
It's pending. It's coming soon.
So, yeah, once we meet with them and, at some point we discussed a long time ago, having a CEQA presentation. I don't know if it needs to be an agendized item, but I think it would be good for the commissioners and any commissioner and city council to actually have a CEQA training. And I don't know if we can do something like that.
All right. And then March, we'll have the bicycle and pedestrian transportation plan group back.
Or it sounded like that might be April from what they said.
The email said March,
Email
so
said March,
we'll
but
verify it's
yeah.
either March or April. Okay, were there any other report outs from ad hocs that were?
There's something else I'd like to suggest as potentially as an issue and potentially an agenda item. And that regards the timing of the election of the chair and vice chair for this commission. And I want to start by saying I'm completely happy and have completely supportive of transferring the things over today. It's a little earlier than expected, but and so by no means want to sound like sour grapes in any way, but I think it is important for this commission and for other commissions to have the timing of the election of the chair and the vice chair aligned so that it's effectively at the start of new terms for commissioners who are based on the appointment schedule. Right now, the terms end on March 31st and the new terms begin on April 1st. So that would mean it would be optimum to have the election happen at the first meeting in April. There's a couple reasons for this. One is then the people on the commission for that period of time are electing the chair, and also then if you don't have the issue of someone getting elected as a chair and not being able to serve the full term because they term out before the year is over. But it also makes sense in terms of helping establish the goals for the commission for the year. Typically, our schedules, we would have a election of the chair and vice chair, and then shortly thereafter have our annual retreat where we set up our annual goals in alignment with city council goals. We set up our priorities and establish our ad hocs, and each of the ad hocs typically feeds into a work plan item. So it makes sense for a lot of reasons for this alignment to be changed. This year, fortunately, it doesn't affect the Parks and Rec Commission because there are no expiring terms this year. So that works fine. I know the Planning Commission ran into the same issue last year. They elected a new chair and vice chair in January, and they didn't like the idea, and so they changed their bylaws to shift that election to April. I did a little bit of research, so I'm not sure what the best approach on changing this is. If we were just to look at it for the Parks and Rec Commission, in the municipal code, each of the commissions has their own section. The Parks Commission is the only commission that calls out that the election happened at the beginning of the year. It's more vague for the other commissions. However, in the BCC handbook, it does say that the election happens at the first meeting of the year. So there's things that are out of sync with each other between the Muni Code and the handbook. And it seems like it probably would make sense to get all of the commissions sorted out the same way. Maybe adjust the Muni Code to refer to the handbook for how these details are handled. Anyway, I don't know if it's something that will be where the best path would be for the commission to agendize this and send an action message to the city council on this, or there may be a better path to be taken on this. And I also bring this up if this is something that needs to go to policy and services potentially, then this, I don't know to what extent that schedule is defined at the retreat coming up, and this becomes important. It is important for this to be addressed this calendar year in my mind.
Sounds to me like a policy and services type thing. When I sat on PNS this past year, we had a fair amount of agenda room. I'd be surprised if it couldn't be brought up during the year. But the nice thing about that is then you have the city attorney there who can talk about, is it better to amend the municipal code or just amend it to refer to the handbook, or what's the best way? And I'm sure they'd have an opinion on that. So that seems to me to be the place that makes sense to go.
So to what extent are the PNS agendas mapped out for the year at the retreat, and to what extent is there flexibility to add something onto an agenda later?
I didn't have a lot of insight into how things ended up on the PNS agenda in front of us, but I don't remember it being mapped out much at all at the retreat. Now, we're all a little more played in this year because we had 3 newcomers, but last year at the retreat, we really just talked about our priorities. It was very, very focused on substance and very not on process. My guess is it'll be that way again this year, because this year we're doing it on a Monday night instead of a Saturday. So now we tend to go for many hours on Monday nights, but I think if we don't have to, we might be less inclined to. So I wouldn't feel, again, a lot of pressure to have it on Monday night. I would think you could get it on the agenda other times.
Thank you.
Great. All right. So we'll look to, we work with staff to see what's the best vessel, if it's coming back to the full commission for a referral, or just working to see if we can get it on the magical agenda. Okay. Any other agenda changes or additions?
Do we have a date for the retreat yet, and a place?
We do not. We'll be doing some polling for availability.
Good. Thank you.
And hoping to do similar location last year, maybe up at the Interpretive Center or other spaces that may be available.
So rough timeline you're thinking for the retreat?
April.
March.
Yeah, March, April, depending on commissioners' availabilities.
We did it in April, or did it in May of this
Yes.
last year. could potentially think about doing it in March, which give us a little bit more flexibility to put the work plan together.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Okay, and with that, we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone.